All right, guys, welcome back to week 6 of the head coach episode. We're already a third of the way through the season, which is pretty crazy. I'm here with Yanni. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Nothing too exciting. How was your day?
It was good, man. It was good. A lot of work, pretty busy. Might have had a great Pokemon card score, but that's a different conversation. All right, so let's get into it. We have only two teams on bye this week. We got the Vikings and the Houston Texans. And I'll start off the Thursday night game. We got the newly 4-1 Philadelphia Eagles going to New York to play Jackson Dart and the New York Giants. The Eagles have an implied team total of 24 points, and the Giants have an implied team total of 16.5 points. For the Eagles, we're going to start all of the relevant fantasy assets here. Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Dallas Goedert, too. He's kind of been balling out. Then for the Giants, our only start for you is Theo Johnson. Our sit is going to be Tyrone Tracy, and then we're going to tricky decisions Scat and Jackson Dart. And let's start with the Eagles first. I feel like this is just an easier conversation, right? Last week was really bad. They took a horrible, horrible L to the Denver Broncos, and the offense looked broken. I think that this offensive unit is not nearly as good as last year's version, but this Giants defense is a pretty soft matchup. They have a nice like defensive line, but they don't really stop the run or the pass very well. I think this is probably a nice bounce back spot for the Eagles. That's why we're not doing any weird tricky decisions here. I would just roll out your guys and kind of hope that you hit the high side of the variance for the wide receivers in AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. Also, important to note, Saquon Barkley revenge game. He might fucking pop off here. It would be his first real big game of the season, but I kind of like that. Like if you're doing a DFS captain, Saquon revenge game, which seems like a good shout. Then for the Giants, it feels like they're just out of bodies at this point. Like Malik Neighbors going down, like it's just a total dagger to like what this Giants offense wants to do, because he was really their only relevant pass catcher, right? So now, like you have Theo Johnson. I think he's getting like a 34 or 35% target share. That's why he's going to be a start for us this week. He got in the paint twice. He was probably a waiver wire pickup this week. If you got him, roll him out here. It is a tough defensive matchup, but the Giants are going to have to move the ball somehow. They can't rush 40 times in the game, right? And I like Theo Johnson kind of working over the middle as a safety blanket. He's not going to be drawing Quinion Mitchell, so we like that. We're sitting Tyrone Tracy. He just came off the injury report today. He's going to be back. I would be monitoring what the usage is going to be with him and Scattaboo, who's a tricky decision. I'll just lump them together here. I would say until further notice, until we see something different, Brian Dable shows us something different. Brian Dable, I don't know, like unless there's a change in game plan, I would operate under the assumption that Cam Scattaboo is going to be getting the majority of the work here, and Tyrone Tracy is going to be complementary. If Tyrone Tracy is sitting on your waivers, I would go pick him up because he's a high value handcuff, and I think he's a pretty good player. It's just that Scat has done enough, in my opinion, to earn like the bulk of the work here. Scat's going to be a tricky decision for us though, even though we're projecting the bulk of the work because this Eagles defense is tough, man. Right? Like the offense has been struggling, but the defense is still as nails as ever. Scat, I could see 25, 27 opportunities here, but I don't feel like it'll be the most efficient one. Then with Jackson Dart, again, brutal matchup, but he has been really, really good rushing the ball. The rushing upside is king. And like if you're in a super flex league or whatever, right? Even in the most terrible defensive matchups, I feel like the rushing and the read option stuff could get you home. He's like a lower end quarterback for me, but I think he's like at least worthy of like starts in certain situations. What do you think, man? Did I miss anything?
No, you didn't miss anything. I'm just curious. So I actually pulled it while you were talking. Point totals for the year: AJ Brown has 34.9, Devonta Smith has 45.7. Who do you think outscores the other one here? And I don't know. Does it force any sort of weird thinking for you moving forward about starts and sits? Like, let's say Devonta gets 15 and AJ Brown gets 11. So at that point, Devonta Smith has outscored AJ Brown by like 25, almost 30% on the season. Would that, I don't even know what it would force in your head just about how you view AJ Brown as an asset. Like, I feel like this is a big moment, is what I'm saying for AJ Brown. Um, so like I have a roster where I'm sitting him for Pickens and Egbuka, and then I'm making a really tough call between him and Tet McMillan. Tet gets Dallas, right? And I'm really I know for you that's probably easy. You're going to smash AJ Brown over Ted McMillan, but I really feel like with the game script, he has the number one matchup for all wide receiver in the NFL this week. And I'm kind of worried that the Eagles get ahead so much they just start running the ball, even with Landon Dickinson out with the high ankle. So I don't know. I'm just curious. Will this force any sort of reevaluation of AJ Brown for you? If he gets outscored by Devonta Smith again, if he has like a middling RB2 or wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 borderline game, like how do you feel about that?
I think it depends on how it looks, right? Like, I mean, when you say stuff like Devontae Smith has outscored AJ Brown by like 30% this year, 30% of a small
Like
number is
11,
still a pretty small number. Like
right? It's like 11.
one AJ Brown good week could flip that.
Yeah.
So we told you last week, right? AJ Brown had the Surtain matchup. It was really bad. Like we avoided starting him. We told you tricky decision. I avoided him where I could have last week. It's interesting. The Eagles threw 75% of the time last week against the Denver Broncos, and Saquon had like 10 carries. I don't think that usage continues, right? I think it's going to be a heavy Saquon game here. I think AJ Brown has a bounce back week. I'm not going to be super results based on this one just because I feel like you need to take the context of the game into it as well. Like if Jalen Hurts like drops back under 20 times and the Eagles just run it down the Giants' throat, like I would be like, okay, well, they didn't have to pass in this game. Like that doesn't make AJ Brown a less valuable asset than Devontae Smith to me, right? If the Eagles come out here and they start throwing a lot and then Devontae Smith pops off, then I think it's a different conversation because the Giants don't have a lockdown corner. Then it might just be like a weird Antonio Brown situation. I'm not really sure. Like it's getting loud there in Philly. The offense had a players only meeting today. Jalen Hurts, Saquon, and AJ Brown had like a meeting amongst the three of them. So like AJ Brown's not fucking happy right now, and Devontae Smith hasn't been happy either. Like it came out last week that they were both like frustrated with their usage in the offense. So it almost feels like the Eagles tried to pass more to like appease those guys last week in a game they shouldn't have done that. So
Do
I
you
don't know.
remember? Do you remember last year, like around week 3 or so, when AJ Brown, they asked him what's the problem with the offense, and he goes, the quarterback. We're not getting play out of the quarterback, which was a pretty like startling, like the quarterback, Jesus, like you know what I mean. And then they went on that win streak. They went on to win the Super Bowl, and it kind of didn't matter. But I think Middlecoff and Coward were talking about it today. About just there's apparently been longstanding reporting that him and Jalen just hate each other. Like they don't like each other as people. They really don't. It's like apparently Jalen has like a Russ Wilson vibe for being kind of corny and too about his business and not about football. I don't know if there's any like fire there, but there's like smoke, you know? So it's just interesting. I don't know how I mean, I have a roster that's actually almost a first place roster that is stacking Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown. Like I need them to figure this out for that roster to keep going. It's a Brock Bowers roster too, and it's somehow almost in first place. I can't believe that. So like I'm relying on this too. Like I really hope I have Jalen Hurts on a lot of fantasy play. It's just interesting. I was curious if this is a change your mind moving forward about AJ Brown game. It might be for me. I
Yeah,
might hit.
it might be depending on how it looks, right? It all just it depends on how it unravels. But I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's off the table, you know.
Like I have a roster with Kelsey and AJ Brown, and I'm close to sending like AJ Brown for Kittle. If this thing looks bad enough, if it looks bad enough this week, like I might be at the point where I would just trade AJ Brown 1-for-1 for Kittle. That's how panicked I may be after this week. Okay. Actually a pretty important game for like the AFC standings because the Broncos have a chance to snake first place here. The Chiefs have stumbled quite a bit out of the gate, and like the Chargers are so banged up. If you're the Broncos, you have to view these next few weeks as a chance to solidify a decent lead on the division. They split the games last year with the Chiefs. Like I imagine we're going to see the absolute best shot that the Broncos have here, and it's a great matchup to do it. Broncos with an implied team total at 25.25, going on the road to face the Jets with an implied team total of 18.25. For the Broncos, they've played some of their best football the last couple of weeks, but it's still been sort of a mixed bag. Like Nix has looked really bad at times, and then he's put together really good drives. For most of the game against Philly, like they were in pretty serious trouble. If Jalen Hurts doesn't sail that ball over AJ Brown's head, like they probably put the game away and get blown out here. But you know, one play, they let him hang around. All of a sudden, they come back and get a huge upset. I don't know. I think Bo Nix has very much been a mixed bag this year. I think Sutton has been stellar. I think J.K. Dobbins has been stellar. And so in general, right, against the Jets, we want to start our guys here. I know that Sutton is going to draw the Sauce Gardner matchup. I also don't know, since they started officiating Sauce like tightly, where they're not letting him commit pass interference every other play, he hasn't really looked like the same player. How can you not notice it? I mean, he got torched by Pickens deep. So I'm comfortably starting Nick Sutton Dobbins here. Dobbins is like fourth in the NFL in rushing yards right now. And this Jets D just isn't what they used to be. I'm totally happy with those three starts. I don't know if we get a ceiling game out of Sutton because Sauce is still pretty good. He's just not like, it's not Revis Island, you know? I do think, so we're going to sit Harvey. He's just not getting the volume anymore. And honestly, guys, unless Dobbins gets hurt, I'm not really terribly interested in Harvey. My interest in Harvey at this point is derived from the fact that Dobbins has not finished an NFL season in his entire career. That is the extent of my interest in Harvey. I'm not necessarily looking to slot him in unless it's a game where they're playing like a New Orleans or something short, maybe in that case. But other than that, he's going to be a sit every week for us. For sort of tricky decisions, you're going to have Franklin and Ingram. Ingram's seen really healthy target volume the last 2 weeks. To me, it looks like he and Nix have a really good chemistry. Like I'm interested in streaming Ingram where I can, like where I needed a tight end stream for the week on my Bowers rosters. I went and picked him up. I think he's not the worst stash if you're on a tight end needy team. He got the touchdown last week. And if Sauce does force some volume to other guys, like he's live to have a good one. Maybe more of a DFS play, but I think he's great in redraft too. I would start him this week if you have to, but he is a tricky decision. He's been a little weird. And then Troy Franklin's first name? Yeah, Troy Franklin. He has sort of shown bursts this year of showing out and then drop back at times. You know, he's young. He's going to be a little inconsistent. I do think, though, Sauce is probably going to force some passes to other places, like for DFS lineups. If you need someone cheap, I think Franklin's a pretty good shout this week. Not a locked in one. That's why he's not a start. But I think he'll have a plus game for his season average. For the Jets, maybe a bit of a hot take. We're going to comfortably start Breece Hall. Breece Hall has looked dynamite to me since getting the starting role. He did get a goal line carry last week. I know there's been a narrative out there that maybe he's not going to. I think he is. And then there's rumors that a bunch of teams are making calls about Breece Hall. They probably want to really be showing him off, maybe get a second round pick for him if they're lucky. And I think the way you want to attack these Broncos is certainly through the ground, not through the air. They're pretty soft in the middle of the defense with Dre Greenlaw and IR. So Hall is the start. I know that in games he's finished this year, Fields is actually the QB1 overall on the season. For any game that he's made it start to finish, he's the garbage time king. He left early against the Bills, but I don't know if this is a matchup where I'm excited to put him out there. I think there's a chance that like the turnovers get so out of hand, the running game kind of dies off, and we get a little bit of a repeat of what happened in Buffalo. I hope you guys aren't one QBing Fields if he's on your rosters. Like any roster where I have Fields, I have a Drake May, I have a Dak Prescott there to pair along with him, so I don't have to start him in matchups like this. I think he's okay. Like, I think he's going to get you 12 or 13 maybe on the low end. Maybe he gets up to 18, 19 because that rushing floor is so good, but I don't think you're going to get a ceiling game out of him. So if you have other, like again, the two specifically I'm doing are Drake May at New Orleans and Dak Prescott. Who do they play? The Panthers. Dak Prescott and the Panthers. I'm comfortably starting both of those over Fields this week. And then Garrett Wilson, another garbage time king this year, been absolutely stellar as a fantasy asset. It's been rocky. It's been up and down. I don't know if I want to attack the Surtain Curtin. You know, that guy is such an animal. He is so good. So again, I don't think you're sitting him out of your lineups. If you really killed the draft, if you absolutely killed it and you're looking at guys like Pickens or Tedero McMillan, if you want to switch those guys in, Pittman even in Arizona, I think will have similar production. Like, I think that's fine. I probably would start your studs. I think they'll move Garrett Wilson around enough. I just don't know if I'm expecting a ceiling game. And then Mason Taylor, the hot pickup of the week this week on the waiver wire. Been seeing tight end one like volume, like mid-range to high-end tight end one volume the last 2 weeks. It looks like Justin Fields really trusts him. It looks like he's live to break out as his second most reliable pass catcher. Should be rostered in every single league. And if you have Brock Bowers out, if you need a streamer this week, go ahead and plug him in there. Again, it's just sort of a tough matchup with Hufanga as a pretty damn good safety and pass coverage. I don't know if this is going to be another ceiling week for him, but I know as long as he's in there, he's going to get some degree of opportunity, and that's really all you can ask for at tight end.
Yeah, I got nothing. You smashed it, man. Like the main thing for me really is this Jets team. Like I think in spots they're going to have great fantasy weeks from them because it's so consolidated. But in matchups like this, with a tough defense, like it's Justin Fields at the end of the
How do
day.
you feel about Taylor? Is Taylor a must start for you for the foreseeable future? If the volume keeps up, are you just sort of rolling him?
He's
Think
not a
he's out?
must start for me, right? But I am starting him where I can because tight
Okay.
end has been tough this year, right? Like it's like if he's getting the volume, like I think week one they were doing like a tight end rotation, and it
Yeah.
seems like Mason Taylor is kind of one out there, and it's like
Okay.
not really so much of a rotation anymore, and it's him. So it's just how reliably Justin Fields can deliver the ball on any given week. Next one, we got the Cleveland Browns going to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers in an AFC North rivalry matchup. The Browns have an implied team total of 16.5 points, and the Steelers have an implied team total of 22 points. For the Browns, we're starting the big Q here. We're going to tricky decision the tight ends and David Njoku and Harold Fannin Jr., and we're going to sit all of the wide receivers. I didn't put Dylan Gabriel on the slide because I don't think he's relevant. But maybe in Superflex if you're desperate. For the Steelers, our only start for you this week is Jalen Warren. We're going to sit Aaron Rodgers and Kenny Gainwell, and then we're going to tricky decision DK Metcalf. Let's start with the Steelers, I guess. This is a tough matchup defensively against this Browns team. The offense is just really bad this year, but this defense is still solid, man. The Steelers have struggled with their offensive line play, and the Browns have done better than any other team against the run this year. The reason Jalen Warren is a start for us is because of that passing work that he gets out of the backfield. I would expect the Steelers to draw up a lot of like plays that are like getting the ball out of Aaron's hands quickly. I think that Jalen Warren, along with the rushing work, it may not be the most efficient this week, right? But I think that he's live for those targets. So you can kind of get an A chain style PPR scam. He's like the Walmart version of A chain, I guess, with the upside to potentially fall in the end zone. Aaron, he's just not mobile anymore, right? Like his arm talent is still elite, I think. Like for a 41-year-old quarterback, like I think this Aaron Rodgers farewell tour so far has gone way better than a lot of people expected it to. Shout out to him. I like seeing him. This is probably the end for him, so I like seeing him go out strong. But we're not attacking this matchup with Myles Garrett and Denzel Ward and the Browns defense. Don't do it if you can afford it. Kenny Gainwell we put on here because we've started to see some speculation that he might have earned some additional work based on his performance against the Vikings in Ireland. Anytime Kenny Gainwell has like gotten work, he's kind of like a Zach Moss type of guy, right? Like any team with the option has phased Kenny Gainwell. Eventually, there's a reason he's a backup running back. Do I think Jalen Warren's a world beater? No, but I think Kenny Gainwell is more of like the directly run between the tackles guy. We don't want to attack that against the Browns, and we think Jalen Warren is going to get way more volume. I think Kenny Gainwell maybe 5 or 6 touches this week, but you can hold him as a handcuff. I think that's fine. Then DK Metcalf, he's actually produced pretty decently this year. Like I think he was like a fifth round pick, and like he hasn't felt bad in that position, but a lot of the stuff he's scoring on, right? I think he took a slant like 80 yards against the Vikings. Like a lot of those like big plays that he's had have been kind of fluky, and he's going to be getting the Denzel Ward matchup, which is not great. He is always live to like because he's a physical freak, right? If he like breaks a tackle or something, he could like get one of those long touchdowns again. But like in terms of like, I don't see him beating Denzel Ward on a lot of technical routes here, right? So you could start him if you want to. It's just not preferred for me. It just isn't. For the Browns, the big Q is our only start of the week for the team. He's averaged 20 rushing opportunities per game since he has been involved in the offense. The only other running backs that have that level of usage are Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, and I forgot the third one, but he's like getting great usage here. He looks really good. He had a 50-yard touchdown pulled off the board due to a bullshit holding call last week. The Steelers defense, like they've been more gettable this year in terms of yardage allowed. He's really the engine of the offense at this point. We're starting him here. He's like inside my top 15. Like he's not like a top end RB1 or anything, right? Just because the state of the offense, but I would feel very comfortable starting him here. Njoku and Fannin, the tight end room earned a 40% target share last week with Dylan Gabriel's first start. Tight ends will help a rookie quarterback act as a safety blanket. To me, like it's kind of 50-50 which one you would prefer between Njoku and Fannin. I think they're both like low end tight end one. starts at this point, right? Because the position's so tough. You're really just looking for one of them to get into the paint for the most part, right? Otherwise, you're probably looking at 5 or 6 points. But
Yeah.
at the position, that's worth a tricky decision. And for the wide receivers, they're just, with the tight ends getting so much of the target share, right? Like the wide receivers have just not been producing. I don't know until we see one of them pop off. I don't think there's any reason, even in like a pretty decent matchup against the Steelers defense, like until they show you something, until Dylan Gabriel shows that he's willing to throw outside the numbers and push the ball down the field and get guys like Jerry Jeudy or Isaiah Bond or Cedric Tillman when he comes back involved, I just would sit this one out if you can. It doesn't mean those Browns guys aren't worthy of like a stash on your bench, but we're not attacking the matchup this week. What do you think, man? You getting up at 6:30 in the morning to watch this one?
Dude, I've been trying to, and the games have gotten so bad so quickly. I've gone back to sleep after like 30 minutes, like I just haven't enjoyed them enough to stay up and watch them. I usually do wake up though. I'll watch it for a little bit. And if it's boring, I'll crash out till like 9:30, wake back up for the games. But I am going to wake up to watch it I think like, because I've been doing a lot of speculating on, well, not even just in our one league. I think Fannin is the better player than Njoku, but he's not getting the total run yet. And I feel like the Browns really want to turn this thing over to a youth movement. And so I've been sort of watching their tight end room because I had some interest in it. I totally avoided the Steelers. I have no Steelers anywhere in fantasy, and I've offloaded my Jerry Jeudy shares. I have a big Q. I have one big Q roster. But yeah, so like I actually am really interested to see what happens with the tight ends. That would be the only reason I'd get up and watch it.
In League One, I have both of these running backs. Like they're my starters this week.
Well, no, see, dude, I think I'd be stoked. I would be thrilled to be rostering where you got them in round 11 and 8 or 9 for Warren and Judkins. Like, to me, that's a league-winning wide or running back room you built. Because, like, I think Jalen Warren is a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside when he gets the passing volume, and I think Quinshon Judkins is a fringe running back 2 with a running back 1 upside when he gets the volume. I think Quinshon Judkins is a running back 1, like a fringe running back 1. So like you got that in the round 9-11. That's how you win fantasy leagues. I'd be stoked with that room.
Just need a Chuba Hubbard to come back and not get dominated by Rico Dowdle. Not holding my breath too much on that one.
Okay, kind of an important game for the Chargers all of a sudden with the current streak they're on. Chargers with an implied team total of 24, going to the Dolphins with an implied team total of 19.5. That 4.5 point spread shows you how much the Chargers O-line is banged up with the way these two teams started the season. Like this should be a 6.5, 7.5. It's not, because the Chargers are running out of bodies in a key unit. They have had cluster injuries on the O-line. Not everyone's into EPA per play, right? Efficiency, expected points added per play. But like when you look at what one tackle does to an offense, much less 2 starting tackles, much less the best tackle tandem in the NFL, or at least the second best, if you want to put a couple other guys up there, when you lose both of those, the offense is in serious trouble. And I am certainly concerned about the Chargers in a few different ways, but I don't think that's going to come through in the Dolphins game. And for that reason, we're starting Herbert. We're starting Haskins. The Dolphins just got gouged for 200 plus on the ground. Dwayne Haskins was Jim Harbaugh's guy in college. He played for him at Michigan. And then we're starting Ladd. We're starting Keenan. And we're starting Keenan Allen. I think both of those are perfectly good starts. And then we're going to tricky decision QJ, and there's a reason for this. I don't know if Justin Herbert is going to get the room behind this current iteration of their offensive line to get the ball downfield to Keenan the way he was in the beginning of the year. You need time. You need 2.5, 3.5 seconds for those routes to develop. That's really where QJ eats. I don't think he gets that anymore. I think the way that their offense is going to have to run, is it in perpetuity? Is it for the rest of the year? I don't know. They're going to get back Becton. They are going to get back Joe Alt probably in 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. He didn't go on IR, I don't believe. I think we may see things look different then, but for the foreseeable future, I'm far more interested in starting Ladd and Keenan than I am in starting QJ. I think they're going to get the short, quick stuff that doesn't need a lot of time to develop. Like, I'm wondering if we're going to see a full-blown Ladd renaissance over the next 2 or 3 weeks where he really breaks out in a big way. Does it stick all year? I don't know. But this week, I'm starting them both with confidence. And I would avoid QJ if you can. I've seen like the fantasy community has shifted all the way around where they're saying, I was seeing videos today about would you rather QJ or Brian Thomas Jr. rest of season? Would you rather QJ or AJ Brown rest of season? And or QJ and Rashi Rice rest of season. Like I saw people really opining about whether or not you can give up someone like QJ for one of those guys. I just don't feel like he's on that level. I really don't. Maybe I will eat my words by the end of this season. I think he had a great month. Players have great months. I think he's an above average football player. I just think you need the right environment around him, and he doesn't have that right now. For the Dolphins, Tua's been a little streaky this year, but he's been pretty hot the last 2 weeks. He's actually been moving the ball pretty well. Should have a game script where he's going to have to pass a bunch here. The Chargers, like defense has all of a sudden been gettable the last couple of weeks. I don't know if that's like the offense isn't sustaining drives and they're out there too much. I'm not sure, but good game script. He's been productive lately. I think he's going to have to drop back and pass 30, 35 times this game. I like Tua as a streamer if you need it, so he's a start for us. A-Chain, Waddle, and then Waller's hilarious. But A-Chain and Waddle, no explanation needed. A-Chain took 56% of his snaps last week were out wide. He was essentially functioning halftime as a wide receiver, halftime as a running back. So the way I conceptualize A-Chain moving forward is he's a wide receiver that has a chance to rush touchdowns or break runs. Like he's the ECR running back 5 rest of season. I'm pretty excited about it. Now, the only thing I'm worried about is the offense imploding. Like I'm concerned that Tua takes one more hit and this thing's off the rails. They've lost Tyreek Hill. Tua's on the edge, but I think until it does, you're riding Tua and Waddle, or you're riding A-Chain and Waddle into the sunset this season. And then Darren Waller, which is kind of funny. He is the tight end 1 in points per game this year. He's only played 2 games, but he is the tight end 1 on a per game basis. It's usually a question with Waller if he can stay healthy, not if he can produce when he's out there. He's a pretty productive player when he's out there. Again, should be a 30-35 drop back game for Tua. I think Waller's filled this role for the Mike McDaniel system that they seem to really like, which is the short range to mid range tight end and the red zone tight end. I mean, we all remember what Jonnu Smith did last year. So I would start Waller this week if you need him. I really would. I would probably be looking to trade him as soon as you can. But if he's on your roster this week, go ahead and roll him out.
Yeah, man. I would like to start this off by apologizing to Darren Waller. I kind of clowned on Yanni for putting him as a start last week. I called him a 32-year-old part-time rapper, and he fucking showed me. He was the tight end 1 last week. Listen, I think at a certain point you just have to say the Dolphins' scheme is what it is, right? And they can just kind of plug and play guys. I am much less of a believer in Devon Achane than Yanni is, but he's getting the opportunity, right? And even if he goes for 10 yards rushing on 10 carries against the Carolina Panthers, they still find a way to get him involved, right? Really, the only player I'd like to highlight on the Dolphins is Jalen Waddle. He looked significantly better to me last week than I thought. It was kind of it's like we went back in a time machine before Tyreek Hill got to the team, right? And we realized, hey, Jalen Waddle's still a good player. So I would feel really much better about him in your starting lineup. Honestly, he's probably going to be a permanent fixture in your lineup as long as Tua stays out there. And then for the Chargers, it's just, I think it will get better eventually, but after this matchup, the Dolphins are a cake defensive matchup. You can just fuck them up. So I like all of the starts here. I think that we're going to start seeing some of these guys that we're telling you to start, though, move their way down to tricky decision in the coming weeks as the competition gets more difficult. All right, next one. We got the 4-2 New England Patriots. I love seeing the resurgence this year, man. Especially as a Drake May fan, it's been awesome to see. Going to New Orleans to play the Saints, coming off their first win last week against Yanni's second team, the Giants. The Patriots have an implied team total of 24.5 points, and the Saints have an implied team total of 21 points. For the Patriots, we're starting Drake May. We're starting Stephon Diggs. Welcome back, brother. And from Andre Stevenson, everyone's least favorite running back, but I guess Mike Vrabel likes him. Then we're going to tricky decision, Trevion Henderson. Then for the Saints, we're going to start Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed. We're going to sit Spencer Rattler, Kendre Miller, Jawan Johnson, and Taysom Hill. And we're going to tricky decision Alvin Kamara. Let's start with the Saints first, because I feel like there's a lot of names on that list. And if you had told me there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fantasy relevant options on the New Orleans Saints. Like week one, I would have probably not believed you. But Kellen Moore's doing a fantastic job, in my opinion. The Saints are they're not a good team, but I feel like they're one of the best bad teams in the league. They're playing with pride at a very minimum, which a lot of teams are not doing anymore. So we appreciate them, and I'm sure the fantasy managers appreciate them. Chris Olave is a start for us this week because he's just been like a total PPR scam. He's getting a lot of targets. Like it just is what it is. Spencer Rattler, like when Spencer Rattler's your quarterback, it totally like lowers your ceiling of what like a player like Olave could be doing like in an ideal offensive situation. But he's getting anywhere from 8 to 10 targets a week now. Last week against the Giants, the Saints attempted to push the ball down the field a little bit more. Was that because it's the New York Giants? I don't know. Olave is getting the Christian Gonzalez matchup, which is not like an ideal matchup. Christian Gonzalez is very good, but with the volume, I feel like he's a comfortable flex start here. Then Rashid Shaheed, he popped off the 80-yard touchdown last week. That was kind of like in sync with the Saints starting to push the ball down the field. If the Saints want to start pushing the ball down the field a little bit more, Rashid Shaheed is going to start popping up here. Like when Derek Carr was still in New Orleans, Rashid Shaheed had a bunch of those long touchdowns. He's very fast. I think he's worth a look here. I really do. Kamara is going to be a tricky decision for us. He popped up today with an ankle injury. I think there was a report that said he injured it on Sunday, like in the first half, and they're just reporting it now. I don't really know what to make of it. What I can tell you though is his snap share has gone down every single week since week one. Kendra Miller is starting to eat into that. Like Kamara's getting a couple more dump offs, but I don't know, man. I don't think he's fallen off. I feel like the Saints are just kind of leaning into this youth movement and they're going to trade him. I'm not sure. I mean, you could start him here. For me, he's more like a low end RB2 to flex option, but you could do it. Then for our sits, Spencer Rattler, it's just that this Patriots defense is actually playing pretty well, man. Like they held the Bills to like what was it, like 24 points. Like it was good performance from them. The Saints are not anywhere close to the Buffalo Bills, so we're just not attacking this matchup. Kendra Miller, it looks like he might be taking over the backfield. I don't know. Like if Kendra Miller is sitting out there like on waivers, you need to pick him up just in case. But he is also like what was it, Yanni? Like the PFF top graded rusher this year or number two or something like that.
He's in the top like 3 or 4 of PFF grades, and he's like I believe first or second in broken tackles or forced missed tackles per attempt. He's been a monster in power rushing, like surprisingly.
And his
Yeah.
usage has been going up every single week, right? They're putting him
Yep.
on the field more. The reason
Yep.
he is a sit for us is because this Patriots team has done a great job against the rush. I definitely lost a bet last week, kind of saying that the Patriots rush defense was kind of a function of who they played, but they just shut down James Cook, man. I'm not attacking like a 50% timeshare on the New Orleans Saints against this rush defense. Juwan Johnson, he's been petering off a little bit. He's been popping up the last 2 weeks with an ankle injury. He has not gotten the volume that he was getting before. And when we're talking about a player like Juwan Johnson, he is entirely reliant on his volume. I have a couple theories as to why that's happening, right? I've noticed that Kamara is starting to get like more targets out of the backfield. Like the first couple weeks, he was not getting those, and Juwan Johnson was kind of operating as the safety blanket for Spencer Rattler. It feels like Kellen Moore is starting to unlock more parts of the offense. They're more comfortable trying to push the ball down the field, and they wanted to get Kamara more, targets out of the backfield, right? Juwan Johnson's like volume scam has kind of been suffering because of that. Now he has Foster Moreau and Taysom Hill back, so it's like it's tough. I want to hold on to him. He's close to a drop for me, but he's not yet because I feel like if Kamara gets traded, that weird like safety blanket usage could come back. So he's just going to be a sit for us this particular week, though. And then Taysom Hill, he hasn't had his Taysom Hill scam yet. I think he took a couple snaps at quarterback last week. I think he had 6 carries. So they're using him. They're using him. It's funny, man. He's like the eternal gadget player. Like he's gone through 3 coaching staffs at this point, and he's just continued to get this weird usage. I think there will be points this year where Taysom Hill makes it as a start a tricky decision, and we feel gross telling you that. I just feel like it's too early now. Then for the Patriots, Drake May, he didn't get there in the fantasy box score last week, but I feel like the improvement from I guess from last year to this year, it's marketable, man. He made some really, really big time throws. He's looked really good. He's been over 20 points, it's 3 out of 5 weeks on the year. And this is a soft matchup that you can attack in the New Orleans Saints. It would not shock me to see him go over 20. I think he's like a mid-range to low-end quarterback one for me this week. ECR has him as the quarterback 5 on the week. I'm not that bullish on him, but I think he's a comfortable start. Stephon Diggs went for like 140 yards last week. The last 2 weeks, he's gotten double-digit targets. It feels like maybe an emergence here of a real wide receiver one for the Patriots. He's been getting a lot of slot work, which has been really good. Like Diggs has kind of been a slot guy for the past 2 years on the Texans and the Patriots. I think this is as good a matchup as any to roll him out. To me, he's like bordering on wide receiver 2, like territory, right? If he starts getting touchdowns too, like you're going to start seeing him pop off if that volume continues. Then Ramondre, I mean, Mike Vrabel likes him. He's getting all over the goal line, right? So if the Patriots get down on like the 2 yard line, I think Ramondre is live to just like fall forwards into the end zone. And it seems like he is just, no matter how many times he fumbles, like Mike Vrabel likes him so much that he's just going to continue to feature him. I don't know what it's going to take for Trevion Henderson to get more work. I don't. We're all watching the same thing. Like Mike Vrabel's not seeing something different than us. Like so, I don't know. But until the usage changes, like it just is what it is. Ramondre's a start. Hendo's a tricky decision. Then we forgot to put him on the slide, but Hunter Henry as well. I'm going to call a start. Plus matchup. He just kind of is that variance player. It depends on what targets he gets. Last week he got 4. He got a red zone target. He didn't pull it down. It's just low end tight end one for me. If you feel like taking the shot at a touchdown, it's probably worth a shout. What do you think, man? Is that enough?
Yeah, it's enough. And there was a report today that, one of those like insider reports, like word from the Patriots. Word from the Patriots is they are looking at significantly increasing Ramondre's role with Gibson out now. So I don't know. I don't know what the deal is there, but he's probably their starting running back. They have an incredible running back schedule second half of the year. Until something changes, he's probably a borderline RB3 guy. So, yeah.
Well, I mean, once upon a time, you called it Baby Camara. Well, you've
Yeah,
always been
well,
a bigger Ramondre fan than me.
yeah, until he started fumbling everywhere. Can't hang on to the ball anymore, dude. I don't know why. I don't
People were
know.
calling him slow. People were calling him bad. I don't know. Like, I think he's okay. Like, he's an undrafted guy, right? That Belichick signed to like a big deal.
Yeah,
Like
he's
that
fine.
was back in the Damian Harris days. Where like
Yeah,
Damian Harris, we were all excited about him. Then Ramondre comes and starts like taking his work, right? I don't know, man. Like Trevion Henderson managers, like get over yourselves, okay? Like
yeah.
I feel like the louder those guys get, the fantasy community gets, like the more Vrabel's gonna say "fuck you," I'm not doing it, just to like kind of spit in their face. He's got a little Belichick in him. I like it.
Okay, really, really big game that I'm actually super excited for. The Seahawks going to the Jags with a 23-point implied team total for the Hawks. Jaguars with a 24.5 implied team total. Jaguars are officially contending and officially competing for the number 1 seed in the AFC. How long do they keep that up? I don't know, but as of now, they are legitimately doing so. They have the same record as the Bills. For the Seahawks, JSN and Darnold. JSN needs no explanation. He is just fantastic. He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. If we redrafted today, he would go top 10. You're never sitting him. And then Darnold, really good streamer this week. I think they're going to be forced to pass a lot. We got proof of concept last week. If they're forced to open up the passing game, like Darnold is more than capable and willing to do that. I know did he throw a pick or take a sack at the end of the game? I believe he threw a pick
He
on the
threw a
last
pick and
drive.
it rebounded off like his lineman's helmet, so it wasn't even
Yeah,
like a
it
bad
was on a
throw.
blitz play. Yeah, like on a blitz play, he threw a pick. Like, dude, I think he played a stellar game. I just think he got by one of the best in the league in Todd Bowles. I streamed him. I streamed him in a few places. I was really happy I did. I think if you have like a 2 quarterback roster, if you have a quarterback that's down right now, if you're going to the waiver wire, like go pick up Darnold, start him this week for sure. Horton and Cup, both of these guys have had flashes this year. I told you guys to go pick up Horton off the waiver wire this week. I still think you should be doing that. It's just the volume is really hard to come by. Cup actually had like a decent, I think he had 7 targets last week, something like that, in a really high shootout game. It's just like really what you need is for both of their volumes to go to one of them, and then you would have a fantasy startable player. But that's really not what we're getting. And remember, coaching staffs don't care about your fantasy teams. They give less than a shit. I could not imagine what Kubiak's look on his face would be if you told him it would really be better for fantasy if we could get Cooper Kupp or Horton, not both. Come on. They don't care. So until something budges one way or the other, like I think you should be holding Horton because Cooper Kupp is always live to twist an ankle or stub something, in which case I think Horton would be a borderline weekly starter. They're just not yet. And this is a pretty good secondary, so we're sitting both of them this week. Before getting to the more interesting part, which is their backfield, AJ Barner, is he leading the NFL in tight end touchdowns this year?
Yes, he is.
He's leading the NFL in tight end touchdowns this year. Actually looks decent. I mean, he's getting the play. I know Arroyo is kind of a cool player. He actually looks really good to me too. I think Darnold has a level of comfort with AJ Barner. There's always this weird, there's the eternal spirit of the weird few week viable tight end in Seattle. We've had weird runs where Will Disley has been a high end tight end one for 3 weeks. Who was the other guy that used to be there with Russ toward the end of his career? Was with Disley for a little bit.
I don't remember. I remember Noah Fant popped up every once in a while.
There's just weird tight ends there that for a few weeks look really good, and apparently it's AJ Barner so far this year. And then for the backfield, this is worth noting, right? Because I'm a big Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker is one of my 5 or 10 favorite players to watch in the NFL. He averaged almost 8 yards a carry last week. He is by all efficiency metrics, he's actually been one of the best running backs of the NFL this year on outside zone, which is Kubiak's whole scheme. It just doesn't matter because he's made enough mistakes. He got a personal foul when he did something weird. Last week, there was this really stupid play where Milroe did a triple option and pitched it to him late and pitched it behind him, and he fumbled, and he got benched for 2 or 3 drives after that. The split ended up being 60% of snaps for Charbonnet, 40% for Walker. So he finished with 10 carries for 79 yards on the day. He's still outscoring Charbonnet in games they've played together, but in terms of who's scored more per game, Charbonnet has scored more in 75% of the games they've played together this year. So to me, it's they're both this weird borderline RB2-3 thing where Sharbs is going to get 2.5 to 3 yards per carry, but he's live to get up to 2 touchdowns a game. And he still does burst and play. He had actually some nice receptions out of the backfield last week. He looked pretty good on a few of them. So it's I think he's startable as an RB2 and 3. And then Walker's weird because he's shown some flashes of, 14 to 18 point game this year, but also he's shown a downside of 3 to 7 points a game. And unless one of them really takes that role, I don't know how you can feel good as either one being a locked and loaded RB2. I've seen some rumors that Walker's going to get traded, and that's why they turned down his volume. He is the best running back in the NFL and running the outside zone concepts that are the cornerstone of Kubiak's offense. I would be shocked if and Charbonnet is one of the worst. He's actually the second worst in the entire NFL in those runs. I would be shocked if they trade him. To me, it just seems like they have a thunder and lightning thing. They have their goal line, their short yardage, their power back, and that also gets roughly half the drive, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then they have their more explosive, more efficient back who they don't trust to finish around the goal line, and they don't trust to take a 60 to 70% workload. And I think they just want them both there at the end of the season for playoff runs. So when they get in the playoffs, if they need Walker to take 25 touches, he can. I just think this is going to be what it is. It is going to be what it is. If that level of efficiency doesn't get you more work, it's because the coaching staff doesn't want him to be, or because something's going on behind the scenes or whatever. So yeah, I do not view Walker as I have a lineup or I have a roster where it's Kenneth Walker, Travis Etienne, and James Cook. And I will probably prefer Etienne over Walker most weeks moving forward. And in my flex spot, I'll get guys like Tedero McMillan in there over Kenneth Walker most weeks. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. For the Jags, BTJ has actually been breaking out a little bit. We haven't seen it in the box score yet, but his catch rate's gone way up. His targets per route run, it looks to me like he's rounding some sort of a corner with chemistry, with health, whatever. I think he's coming around. I think we're due for our first big explosion game of the year from Brian Thomas Jr. this week. The Seahawks have injuries in their secondary. Egbuka just ripped them a new one. They've been giving up like space and explosive plays to wide receiver ones. Ricky Pearsall went off against him week one. Olave found room. He didn't really have a big yardage game, but he found a lot of targets against him. I think this is a really attackable matchup. Do not bench BTJ this week. And then ETN, I think you're better off running against the Hawks than you are passing on them. They actually had a pretty good rushing defense last week, but White still got loose for just a bunch of production. ETN's not getting true workhorse load. Like, he's not going to get the third down roll. He's going to get taken out in the red zone sometimes, but he's also been really, really productive as a running back. I think he's averaging around 90, 95 yards per game right now in rushing and receiving. He's third or fourth in the NFL in rushing yards. I think he's a perfect fit for Liam Cohen's scheme, and I don't think that's going anywhere. I think he's their starter. So sort of tricky decision. Trevor had, I believe, the second best or best fantasy game of his career last week against Kansas City because of the rushing touchdowns and the rushing work. I don't know if I'm relying on that here. He's usually good for an interception or two. The Seahawks defense, Mike McDonald, I would rather avoid it. But if you really need it, if you are really screwed, or if you're in super flex, like, he's going to have the game script, he's going to have to make plays. We're sitting the other receivers here. And notice we're not even delineating Hunter from who's the other dude, number 11.
Parker Washington. There's De'Ami Brown is involved.
Brown, Parker Washington. It's just this amalgamous blob of none. I mean, Hunter, we got the two coolest Hunter plays of the year actually happened last week. He had that little out route where he torched two guys for a first down when he should have probably only gotten a yard. That was really cool. And then on a terribly underthrown ball by Trevor Lawrence into double coverage, he mossed one guy. He jumped over, peeled off his guy, mossed another defender, and had this cool, like, leapfrogging catch. I mean, we're seeing some flashes. Maybe that's why I was actually able to trade Hunter in a trade for basically Mike Evans this week, which was absolutely stunning to me. It was Hunter and Ramondre for Mike Evans and Pacheco. I can't believe that someone was that interested. Maybe that's why we're seeing some interest in him in the fantasy community, because he flashed a little bit. He was technically both their highest graded offensive and defensive player from the last week against Kansas City, which is sort of interesting to see. But I don't think it's going to translate to unless something really changes. I don't think he's a fantasy relevant asset. I just don't. Parker Washington, unless you're talking about 14 team full PPR, he's not either. Bashal Tutin had 2 touchdowns in his first 4 games, and there was sort of some interest about, can he grab this red zone role and make good use of it? He had sort of a funny run last week where he torpedoed into the back of a blocking receiver when he maybe could have scored a touchdown. Vision still needs some work. He's a very much an unfinished product. To me, he's really just a fun handcuff. He's a really fun handcuff. If ETN, God forbid, goes down, God forbid, because my fantasy fates are now very tied into ETN, as it turns out. But if ETN were to go down, Bashal Tutin becomes a top 20 running back. But unless that happens, like, I wouldn't even call him an emergency flex. Like, I'm emergency flexing Zach Ertz over him in a league where I need him this week. So he's a sit.
Well, you know that human resources meme where, like, there's the woman who's, like, sitting there, and there's, like, the attractive guy who says something to her, like, looking good. She's like, oh yeah, and then, like, the ugly guy comes up and says, hey, what's up? The human resources, like, Bashal Tutin is like the ugly guy here. And, like, Cam Scatterbo, everyone loves it when he just runs headfirst and CTE maxes into the defender. Yeah. But when Bashal Tutin does it, they're like, he has terrible vision. Yeah. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, you have to have Tutin rostered, though, is like that handcuff plus type of player. Interesting note about this game. The Seahawks right now, they rank 3rd in stuff rate of the rushing attack from their defensive line. So, like, it's really weird. The Seahawks have given up, like, a decent amount of yards rushing, but they also stuff running backs a lot too. So take that for what you will. I still like ETN as a start this week, just because, like, he's looked way more explosive this year to me than, like, last year. I feel like last year he must have just been injured or something, right? Because now we have I guess a year and a half of, like, sample size of ETN being an explosive runner, and then we have, like, that weird last year. I don't know. I still like him here. And then for the Seahawks backfield, the conspiracy theory I heard about this now is that this is a Kenneth Walker contract year, and the Seahawks are trying to only give him half of the work, so that way they can re-sign him for cheaper.
Get out of here. That's ridiculous. But you did just bring up something interesting, just to tack on to what you said. Then that's a really interesting strength versus strength matchup with the Jags and the Seahawks D-line. The Jaguars are currently 2nd in the NFL in yards before contact per rush attempt. Cohen's scheme is the 2nd best in the league at generating room before the running back gets to the line of scrimmage. And then you're asking what might have changed from last year. They were 31st last year in yards before contact per rush attempt. This year they are 2nd. So that's been a thing, and we saw it with Bucky last year too, right? Cohen is fantastic at designing room for the running back to hit the hole and have room to look around, right? That's actually fascinating to me. Now I'm curious what wins out there, right? That may be like a really important key to the game, because if not, it might be Trevor Lawrence dropping back in third and long a bunch. And in which case, like, that thing could get out of hand quickly.
Well, that's the
Uh,
thing about this game, right? Because the Seahawks, like their defense, I think is actually legitimate this year, but they are banged up in the secondary. They're missing Witherspoon, they're missing like another starting corner, and I think one of their safeties is out too. So like ideally the Jaguars get good quarterback play here and they can like torch the Seahawks kind of like Baker did, but you're asking
yeah.
Trevor to do that. you're, you're asking that of Trevor Lawrence. This Jags team to me is the most fraudulent like good team in the league. Everyone keeps calling them good. I refuse to believe it. This might be last year's Vikings for me, where I just refuse to accept them as a legitimate team and just keep going down with the ship. I don't know. I just don't buy this Jags thing though. All right, next one. We got the Arizona Cardinals. A tough week for them. We'll see if they can bounce back. Going up against the Indianapolis Colts, who I think that this is the best possible start Colts fans could have possibly hoped for. The Cardinals have an implied team total of 20.5 points, and the Colts have an implied team total of 27 points. For the Cardinals, we're just gonna plug our nose and do it. We're gonna start Marvin Harrison Jr. We're gonna start Trey McBride, and we're gonna start Michael Carter. We're gonna sit the other running backs. That would be Amari Diamarcado and Bam Knight. No, thank you. And then we're gonna tricky decision Kyler Murray, the ever omnipresent tricky decision, in my opinion. Then for the Colts, we're gonna start Indiana Jones, Jonathan Taylor, Tyler Warren, and Michael Pittman. And we'll just start with the Colts first here because I feel like this is easy, right? Like I feel like this offense is so consolidated at this point and fantasy friendly. Like we know what all of these guys' roles are, I think. Like to me, Danny Dimes, like he's like a point guard that passes the ball, right? He's like a facilitator of the offense. He's not like gonna play hero ball or anything, but like especially in plus matchups like this, like against the Cardinals defense, I like him as like a low end quarterback one to high end quarterback two here. Like to me, this one has like 16 to 22 points written all over it. Jonathan Taylor, just absolute stud, man, absolute stud. 3 touchdowns last week. I believe. I don't know if you guys ever see those tweets or whatever of like the perfect lineup. Like every week they'll take like the highest scoring player of a position and like put together the perfect fantasy lineup. Jonathan Taylor has popped up on that lineup 3 out of 5 weeks this season. Absolutely elite stuff from him. Just please keep your ankle healthy, my friend. I don't want to deal with another high ankle from you this year. Tyler Warren, outstanding rookie, high end tight end one to me. The tight end position is rough. It's got to feel like one of the best picks you could have possibly made. And then Michael Pittman, the usage has just been consistent as gravity. I know that it wasn't on a lot of people's boards in draft season that he would be the wide receiver one, but he is. He just effectively is. His usage is the most consistent. He's out there in 2 wide receiver sets, and he's still a good player. To me, he's like a low end wide receiver two to flex play, but I think that's going to be pretty sticky through the whole year. We do not have Josh Downs listed here because we just don't think he's fantasy relevant. He had 8 targets last week, which a lot of Josh Downs truthers were excited about, but he's still only getting on the field in 3 wide receiver sets, excuse me. AD Mitchell got doghoused last week, so there was like some speculation that Josh Downs might be rolling out there and getting more snaps in 2 wide receiver sets. The Colts elected to roll Ashton Doolin out there instead. That's just a scheme fit thing to me. You if you're desperate, you can, I guess, play Josh Downs, but I would be expecting less than 10 points every single week unless he gets lucky with a touchdown. For the Cardinals, I feel like you just have to separate the actual product on the football field with the fantasy production, right? And when you look at the Arizona Cardinals, they're just concentrated. Marvin Harrison Jr., we've been begging you to get out of the Marvin Harrison Jr. business, but that is a sell high. It's not a sell him for peanuts
Yep.
situation, right? He's looked better the last 2 weeks. When I say better, it's like relative. But the Colts back end, they aren't great. They have Mooney Ward out there and Sam Womack. It's all the 49ers cast offs. like by the PFF metrics, like the Colts have had a good secondary this year. I just don't buy it though. Like to me, Marvin Harrison Jr. is like a wide receiver 2 this week, and you're probably better not watching the game. Just like look at the fantasy box score. You probably don't want to see this happen like every snap. Terry McBride, the production hasn't been great this year, like or at least what you drafted is like a third round pick. But he's been okay. He's been consistent. His down weeks are like 8 or 9 points, which is better than other tight ends' down weeks, and he has the upside to get in the end zone. He hasn't been doing that a lot. There's been a lot of reevaluation of the player, but he's still fine as a tight end 1 this week. And then Michael Carter, he kind of won the Arizona backfield debate. Like last week there was a hot debate about who the Cardinals like leading rusher would be. There were guys taking aggressive stances on Twitter. There was actually one fella, what is his name? Top One Fantasy Sports was like the most aggressive Amari DiMercato guy I've ever seen. Fantasy Receipts posted his like tweets like, "Oh yeah, you're an idiot," right? Then that guy got outed as like a weird fella. He deactivated his Twitter. He's gone. Michael Carter's the champion though. I mean, it's not going to be efficient or look pretty, but he's the most likely to fall into the end zone on a goal line carry. He's going to get the bulk of the work. It just is what it is. He's like a flex play to low end running back too. Then Kyler, it's I hate the player. I hate the player. We just haven't seen any development from him whatsoever, right? Like it feels like he's not a ounce better than he was like his second year in the league. He will always be a tricky decision though to me because of the rushing upside that he presents in any given week. Again, with the Arizona Cardinals, I would suggest not watching the game. Just go look at the fantasy box score afterwards. So that way you don't have to subject yourself to Arizona Cardinals football. Sorry, Bayham Cousins. What do you think, Yanni?
Nothing to say here, man. It's pretty boring for both accounts. Like the Colts are what they are, and the Cardinals are what they are.
Maybe a pick this week by one of us.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I think that's going to be on my picks. This one I would actually be tempted to if the number wasn't 7.5. If it was 7 or lower, if this number gets to 7 or lower by game time, I may take a pick here too. The Rams, 26-point implied team total, going to the Ravens with an 18.5-point implied team total. One of these teams' offenses could not be playing better. The other one could not be playing worse. One of these teams' defenses could not be playing better. The other could not be playing worse. It is a tale of two seasons for the Rams and for the Ravens. I was actually pretty shocked and pretty alarmed to see the Ravens trade like a young asset on the D-line to the Chargers for not a great pick. Like, that's weird. That's scary to me to see the Ravens doing at this point in the year, especially with the state of their defense. I don't know what they're thinking, man. So who knows what the vibes are coming into this one. We do not expect Lamar to go. It would be crazy for him to go because they have a bye next week. Give him 2 or 3 weeks. You paid the man $250 million. You want him out there healthy. For the Rams, Stafford is an excellent. I've still seen him on some waiver wires in one quarterback, 12-team leagues. I don't know if he's like a must roster, but like I probably would. The Rams secondary has been pretty leaky, and it's forced him to really air the ball out the last 2 weeks. I don't know off the top of my head. I want to say he's put up 50 points, 55 points the last 2 weeks combined. Like pretty healthy output, man. And like the Ravens, God only knows what he's about to do to them. Next week, he gets Jacksonville in Europe. I don't know if that's like the best start, but if you have Lamar injured, like I went and spent serious fab. I spent 17% fab on Matt Stafford so I could have him for 3 weeks to keep my roster afloat. Like I feel fine about that. I'm totally comfortable rolling him out there. I would roll him out there this week. Puka Nacua, either the best or second best or third best asset in all of fantasy football. Nothing to say, just fantastic. Devontae Adams, one of the most targeted assets in all of fantasy in the red zone. Devontae Adams is probably a top 15 wide receiver for the rest of the season as long as Matt Stafford's healthy. The Rams know the assignment. It is to give a nice chunky 35 to 45% target share per game to Puka and Devontae. It's awesome. If you drafted either one of those guys, you're happy as a clam. I accidentally drafted Devontae because he slipped all the way to the 5th round, and I'm happy as a clam. Kyren Williams, terrible defensive matchup here. Terrible in a good way for the running back. It is bad news. If you want to run the ball against the Ravens, you're going to be able to do that in troves, unless your name is Woody Marks, and I needed you that week really badly. Kyren Williams is actually like, it's weird. He's been fumbling and it hasn't been great, but he also like had one of the best games I've seen from just like a prolific production standpoint against the Niners. He's had 2 games where he was like a boom top 5 running back this year, and he's had 2 games where he was like more like an RB3. I think it's rostered game script dependent. If they get a really big lead on the Ravens, I think you're going to see a lot of Blake Corum here. So I don't know if this is like a crazy ceiling game, but like I think he's got a real good chance to give you 13 to 15 half PPR. And that's fine. That's going to get you by. That's certainly a start. Again, there's a little bit of a concern. Does Blake Corum take more of the work here with the direction that this game could go? I think he's live to do that here, but it's also such a bad rushing defense. Like I feel good about Kyron. Terrence Ferguson, sort of an interesting thing here that we have Higbee and we have Parkinson. Both may miss this week. And Terrence Ferguson had a nice 21-yard gain against the Niners last week. I just think he's an interesting streamer or DFS play. Like if you want to do a single game with a captain and you throw him in there as a captain, he's probably going to be like, I don't know, $3,000 on DraftKings. So maybe you get a $5,000 to $6,000 captain that's live to catch 8 or 9 balls here, even just 5 or 6 balls, maybe a touchdown. I think that's a great move. So I'm interested in Terrence Ferguson, more for DFS, more for emergency streaming purposes. But if Parkinson and Higbee miss, to me, he's live. He's live this week. But sort of tricky decision for now. The Ravens absolutely breaks my heart to see this. You don't see Lamar there because he's been injured. But Zay Flowers, the Rams secondary has been trash, abject garbage, more so against big-bodied receivers than fast guys. But if Kendrick Bourne can go for 40 yards with Mac Jones tossing him the ball, Zay Flowers can do work. He got some garbage time from Cooper Rush last week. They're going to be trailing a bunch. I actually think Zay Flowers is a perfectly reasonable start this week. I think he has a chance to have his best game since week 1, where he went for 26.4 and half PPR. I would be starting him. I actually have a tough choice. I'm curious where you would fall on that, Ted. Scattaboo at Philadelphia or Zay Flowers at the Rams?
Zay Flowers.
Yeah, it's kind of where I'm leaning. He did pop up. I'm going to check. He popped up on the injury report this week, but it sounded like a little thing. Anyway, you're starting Zay Flowers. For your sits, we're going to sit Mark Andrews. I'm just not starting him with Cooper Rush. Mark Andrews relies on touchdown equity. There is not a whole lot of it to be found. Hoping he gets traded to the Buccaneers or the Jaguars. And then your sort of tricky decision is going to be Derrick Henry. Since being the RB1 overall in fantasy, Derrick Henry has oscillated somewhere between like RB36 and RB59. For the last 4 weeks. He is one of the players that is most correlated with an 0-5 start this year. I have a roster where I'm actually 3-2 and 4th in scoring in the league. Pretty shocking. That was a Derrick Henry, Drake London roster. Cannot believe that thing floated to this point. But it's been a disaster rostering Derrick Henry. It is painful right now, especially after the first week when you kind of went, oh my God, we're going to get another top 5 season in the back end of the first round. You felt really good. Look, at his age, with the quality of the O-line, he needs Lamar opening up those spaces. And with his touchdown equity in the offense, he needs there to be a piece of the touchdown pie that he's getting the equity out of. That's just not there right now. I'm expecting 5 points, 7 points from him this week, if that. If you I would start Scatabo over Derrick Henry this week. I would start ETN over Derrick Henry easily this week. I would start Rachaad White over Derrick Henry without a second thought this week. I would start Michael Carter over Derrick Henry. I would start Rico Dowdle at Dallas. Oh my God, not in a fucking millisecond. I would start him over Derrick Henry. I wouldn't be surprised if Haskins outscores him for the Chargers this week against Miami. It's a vicious rush defense. And it's been bad. And he's going to bye next week. I don't think they're going to push him too hard. Keaton Mitchell looked pretty good on a per touch basis, getting in there a little bit last week. It's just going to be what it is until Lamar Jackson's back. As someone who has incredibly heavy Ravens bags this year, it just is what it is. This is what fantasy is, fellas. You ride it out until they get healthy, and this is where we're at. You are going to be riding it out until they get healthy.
Yeah, on that Derrick Henry piece, I would say he falls under the category of significantly better football player than he is a fantasy asset at this point in time, right? And he's just liable to get games scripted out. The Ravens have shown us that when they're losing by a lot and they need to drop back and pass at every down, right? They prefer guys like Justice Hill out there instead of Derrick Henry and his pass catching out of the backfield. It feels to me like the Ravens may be down big in this one if they just allowed 40 to the Texans. Yeah, it's tough, but nice buy low window for Derrick Henry here. I got a couple lines in the water on that one. And then the other note I have on this one is I'm expecting a massive Devonte Adams game here. I believe I was listening to Establish the Run last night, and they were kind of going over like what the air yards are for Puka and Devonte. And Devonte's getting way more looks down the field than Puka is, right? Puka's like the best possession receiver in the game, and they're using
Yeah.
Devonte as like a complimentary down the field shot guy. So against a trash defense like the Ravens have right now, like I think Devontae could pop off here. I'm not saying for sure, but I think it's on the board that he outscores Puka this week. Smash start for me. All right, next one. We got this is going to be a pretty fun fantasy matchup, I think. And that's just probably going to be the deal going forward for all Dallas Cowboys games. We got the Dallas Cowboys going to my second team, the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are undefeated at home this year. Do they do they go to 3-0 at home? The Cowboys have an implied team total of 26.25 points, and the Panthers have an implied team total of 23 points. For the Cowboys, we are starting Dak Prescott. We're starting Javonte Williams, RB3 on the season. That's incredible. We're starting Terrence Ferguson, Jake Ferguson. Sorry, Jake. You are the tight end one on the year by a comfortable margin as well. And we're starting George Pickens as well. He will be getting the J.C. Horn matchup, but we don't care. Start. For the Panthers, we're going to start Chuba and or Dowdle. Chuba Hubbard right now is on the injury report. He was a DMP today on Wednesday, so fantasy managers keep track of that. If Chuba plays, I would still start both of them. If Chuba does not play, I think Rico Dowdle in the revenge game against Dallas is a smash. We're going to start Tet McMillan here, and then we're going to start Bryce Young as a streamer slash a DFS pick. And then our tricky decision. This one makes me so happy. Jalen Coker is coming back, boys. Jalen Coker, the Coke man's running the slot. I'm stoked. And let's start with my Panthers. This Cowboys team allows the most yards in all of the NFL. All of their games this year are going to be extremely fantasy friendly, and you're going to have a lot. Like, there's going to be a lot of fantasy managers watching some Dallas Cowboys. I mean, with Rico Dowdle rushing for 200 yards last week against the Dolphins, how could you not? I don't see the Cowboys as significantly. They're not better in any way. You know what?
No.
I'm going to take that back. They're the exact same tier as the Miami Dolphins defense. I'm going to say. So yeah, I really do think they're like the same level of trash. So I feel like getting that running game really helps out Bryce. Like Bryce is trying to stay afloat as an NFL quarterback, and nothing helps a struggling quarterback like a strong running game. They'll be able to find room here. I like both of them. Tet McMillan, he has not gotten there on the fantasy box score this year. We've said it multiple times. Yanni's had him as a trade target. I believe that this player is a significantly better player than he has been in a fantasy asset so far. Really, all he needs is like catchable balls from Bryce Young. I think that out of all the defensive matchups that you could have, the Dallas Cowboys are a pretty good opportunity to get some catchable balls. You know what? I'm going to call it. Tet McMillan gets his first touchdown of the year. I think it really truly happens. And with that volume, if he's scoring touchdowns, I think that he's like a high end wide receiver two this week. Then Bryce Young, this is more of like like in a 12 team, one quarterback league. Please don't start Bryce Young, like, unless you're really desperate and banged up with injury. But this Cowboys defense is trash. I think that the Panthers are going to score some points here, and you could do worse than Bryce. Jalen Coker, he's going to start this week, and he's going to be in the slot. We just haven't seen him yet. We're getting him as a tricky decision here, like more out of like putting him on the radar. I think there's a very good chance here because Jalen Coker's looked excellent last year in his rookie season. They moved Adam Thielen because they said we're going to have Jalen Coker play the slot for us. So there's some buy-in here from the coaching staff. There's some talent we think with the player. It's you know I wouldn't be gung ho about starting him here in this specific instance, but if he's on your waivers, go scoop him up right now because if he pops off, like there's like not he has this weird contingent of fans. Like I count myself as one of them. I'm a cokehead myself. And all of the cokeheads are going to run out to get Jalen Coker if he does anything in this game. So if you can beat them to the punch, get him on your roster now. Then the Cowboys, it's just consistent as gravity, man. Dak Prescott, I believe he's the fantasy quarterback 3 this year. He's looked excellent. He's playing some of the best football of his career. Even though CD's not in there, he's been keeping fantasy managers afloat, and it's only going to get better in a plus matchup. QB1 this week, no problem. Javonte Williams, what a resurgent season, man. I feel like this is one of the players that, like, he feels like last year's like Chuba Hubbard or Chase Brown to me, where it's like that ninth, 10th round pick that's just an absolute smash. I don't see it getting any. I don't see him falling off here against the Carolina Panthers rush defense. I did hear some talk about how the Panthers D line has a bunch of like power guys that like can close up lanes, and that's why A Chain didn't do as well last week. Javonte Williams is pretty north and south runner. He just kind of hits the hole and goes. I still like him here. And then Ferguson, it's just a no brainer at this point. Like he's getting the volume. As long as he gets the volume, he's going to continue to be a tight end one. Then George Pickens, he saved his fantasy day last week with the one long grab against Sauce Gardner. He's been really good this year, though. I think this is like, if you're a Pickens truther or a believer in the talent, like this has been like the best possible season for you because we're seeing what he can do with like a real quarterback. He does get J.C. Horn, which is mildly concerning, but Jalen Waddle just torched Horn last week. Where you're not sitting Pickens unless you have like some unbelievable other options. What do you think, Yanni? Do you like Tet's chances of getting in the paint for the first time?
I do. I do. I'm excited. I'm still, dude. The first month of Ted has not deterred me even a little bit from what I think of him. I'm stoked. Did you know that all time for air yard share through their first 5 games, number 9 and number 10 all time are Egbuka and Ted McMillan all time since like 1960. So they've gotten top 10 usage for a rookie through their first 4 years. It just needs to come together for him. It's kind of, it's like killing me because they keep getting so close. I do think it's going to be a big week, though. I am excited. I'm curious. So would you start AJ Brown at the Giants or Tetaroa McMillan at the highest yards and fantasy points allowing secondary in the league? That is a tough call for me. That is a real like thing that I think you're going to lean AJ Brown, but like you have to understand how invested I am in this Tetaroa thing, and you do understand because you've been along for every step of the way. If I miss his first explosion game in like on that roster because of AJ Brown, who's fucked me this year, just fucked me. I don't know, but I'm curious what would be your decision making around there and your thought process around it.
The matchup does not get better than this for Tet, and AJ Brown has showed the variance, right? So I feel like Tet is the safer option and also presents high upside. So I would do that. I'd feel fine doing that this week.
And then one more temperature check thing. Do you think? So I saw someone like talking about, dude, Pickens is like getting thrown around in some wild trade things for his value. Like some people think he's like a top 10 guy rest of season. I think that's a little silly. But he is CD is gonna come back, and Pickens is going to get way less attention on him. And like I think he can maintain like a 13 to 15 point per game pace. Like he's probably not going to get the crazy spikes like he had earlier this year, without CD. What do you how do you feel about him as a fantasy asset? Because CD was almost back. He's running without an ankle brace right now. So in practice this week. So it seems like CD's live to come back this week. I don't think it happens. I think it's going to be next week. But like he's coming back next week is what I think. Just how do you view Pickens as a fantasy asset going forward? Does he fall back into that blob, that wide receiver 2-3 blob from like 15 to 30 of just guys that'll get you anywhere from 10 to 13 a week and you're plugging them in your starting lineup? Or do you think he could be a plus guy that is the fringe wide receiver 1 guy?
I think he could be a plus guy, man. Like when CD went down, like one of the things that the fantasy community said that I think they had right is that Pickens does not prefer to be like the number 1 wide receiver on a team.
Yeah.
So when you have CD out there, like it opens it up for both of them, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, like George Pickens, like just by the nature of the way he plays, he's like a total 50-50 ball guy. He doesn't always get a ton of volume, but I don't think that matters. If you think if the Cowboys are going to continue to do this, right? Dak's playing at like the highest level, I think of almost of his career. He's playing really, really great football, man. And the defense is consistently bad. Like I would have a hard time moving off of George Pickens. Like I would feel very comfy with him in my lineup, and he's
Yeah.
probably eternally stapled to like my flex or wide receiver 2 position. The only situation I'd want to move him is if like you get one of those like crazy guys that like thinks he is top 10, then sure, cash out on it. But I think that he is a rock solid option, probably one of the better round 4 to 5 draft picks you could have made in retrospect. I wish I had some. I wish I had some. I was just hammering Worthy everywhere. I missed him.
I have 25 or 33% roster exposure to Pickens. My Pickens bags were well and truly packed. Speaking of well and truly packed bags, fucking Brock Bowers is out this week. Sorry for the swearing, but these have been some emotional. I've been going through some emotional stuff lately with some of my top picks that have not been hitting, and Brock Bowers is one of them. It looks like he's going to miss this week. Titans with an 18.5 implied team total, going to the Raiders with a 23-point implied team total. Probably one of the very few times for the rest of the entire season you're going to see the Raiders be favored by more than a field goal. For the Titans, Cam Ward, I don't even think it's necessarily a Cam Ward thing. He says their team's ass. I think the team is ass. I think Cam Ward has been working through really adverse circumstances all around him. Probably an incompetent head coach, probably an incompetent offensive line, probably not an adequate receiving core, very below average running backs. I wouldn't have said that about Pollard coming in, but he really hasn't looked great this year. Yeah, that's sort of what the story of their season's been. And you would hope that with all the negative game scripts, the passing game was popping off a little more, and that hasn't been the case. Ridley's been an interesting one, right? So Pollard's a start here. Until he loses volume, he has a top 5 workload share in the NFL out of the backfield. You are going to start him in a soft matchup like this, and Spears is actually going to be a sit. He's not getting enough work yet. We don't know where they're going. We don't know if he's going to get targets yet. Probably still worth stashing on your bench. Again, like there's some fringe cases where he's not, but I probably still want to be holding him, right? Ridley is the controversial one. Ridley is going to be a start for us this week. And by start, I'm calling him like a plus flex, a flex with some upside. Last week he had 15.7, I want to say, in half PPR. Believe that's correct. I should pull these before the show, but he was around 15 points. He got really good volume. And really outperformed Io Manor, who's not even listed on here because he's been like a 3 or 4 point per game guy for the last 2 weeks. I don't know. Is that a legitimate breakout? I think it might be just because of what they paid Ridley and because of Ridley's track record with being a wide receiver 1 and Cam Ward maybe finding something with him there. I think that in this matchup, he's going to be really good. And I think moving forward, actually, Ridley's going to become someone you can depend on. I'm really bummed. There were a few spots where like I took Ridley at the 5-6 turn, usually in the early 6th round. But like, dude, on Yahoo, that means he was going around guys like Emeka Egbuka, around guys like Rashee Rice, around guys like even Devonta Smith was sometimes sliding back there. Tony Pollard, like there were guys in that range that have been game changers for your lineup. And I've found that my rosters with Ridley have really suffered this year. And I really thought like he might be a volume monster. Dude, we had that stretch at the end of last year where he was like a fringe wide receiver 1 at points. He was more like a high-end wide receiver 2. I thought we were going to get that all year. Maybe as Cam Ward matures and takes steps in his development, we see more of that. Maybe we got a glimpse of it last week. I'm totally comfortable flexing him here. If your rosters are thin, if they're banged up, I think you can go ahead and get him in there. I even saw him dropped in like probably 25% of the free Tendies fantasy leagues. He was dropped over the last 2 weeks. Make sure he's not on your waivers, please. And start him if you have him here. The Raiders, Geno. These are more streamers, by the way, for the most part. Geno is a good DFS player streamer. This is a really soft matchup. He's been like dog water all year. They lost their left tackle, but I think for DFS specifically, you're going to get something out of him this week, and you can, build a pretty beefy roster around him. Mayer's another one. Like if you want to do the Geno Michael Mayer stack, because it looks like Mayer's coming back this week, the Raiders referred to him as a second tight end 1 in their lineup this year when talking about him and Bowers. Look, that is dirt cheap. I bet you the Geno Michael Mayer stack would cost you like $8,000 or less in DraftKings. I think that's a great thing to chase. I can't imagine what you'll be able to put. You want to put Bijan as your running back? He's probably going to be $8,300, $8,400 this week. You can certainly do that if those are your tight end and quarterback. Mostly streamers there. Jacoby Myers. I thought Jacoby Myers was a sneaky wide receiver 2 upside guy in drafts this year in the 8th or 9th round. He's been more like a wide receiver 3. He's had like a couple wide receiver 2 weeks, but in full PPR, he's getting you there on volume. I think this is such a soft matchup that he's a great flex option this week. But like, I don't know. with the way Geno's playing and the way the O-line's performing, I don't know if he's going to get to where I thought he would be this year. He's kind of similar to Ridley, just two vets that I think on paper things looked really good for, and they haven't come together. And then Genty saw really good volume last week. I believe he saw 5 or 6 targets on the back of his 30-point game. That's really encouraging if they're going to dump the ball off to him more out of the backfield, especially as they can't find room in the running game. Also, the Titans just got gouged. What did they give up, 10.5 PPR to Carter? 17?
It was like 16.5, I think.
16.5. They gave up 5 receptions for 20 yards. They gave up the 75-yarder to DeMercado. Like, I think Genty goes off this week. So you're going to feel good about him in your lineup. Again, not a whole lot of interesting things to say about these two teams. Just sort of just gross dumpster football. I mean, I think the Titans are live here to get their second win of the season. I don't know if it really matters. It just hurts them in draft position for next year. It just means Cam Ward, every win Cam Ward gets just means his next year is going to be a little less beneficial. He's going to get a little bit less of a player in the first round if he keeps winning. It's really a depressing situation to be in.
You know, I liked both of these teams coming into the year. I thought they'd be like not great teams, but I thought that, they'd I thought they'd be like spicy, like maybe 6, 7 win teams, something like that. It's just not the case. Geno Smith has been awful this year, but what Geno Smith will do is he will recklessly push the ball down the field. Trey Tucker has been a large beneficiary of that. The Titans are like 28th in quarterback scoring, though. I feel like a lot of that is just because you can run all over them, right? So you have weakness versus weakness here. The terrible Raiders offensive line going up against the terrible Titans rush defense. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, Genty. Like, in these neutral matchups where he's not constantly just getting assaulted behind the line should be pretty good because he's a pretty good player. And that's all I really have to say about it, right? Like Calvin Ridley, I don't think I have a worse read on a player in the entire NFL than Calvin Ridley. I have no fucking idea what's going on week to week. I said he might be terrible at football. Last week he goes for 100 yards. Very confusing player. I have none of him rostered. If I did, he'd leave me scratching my head. I have no idea what to do with him. All right, next one. Big game for our San Francisco 49ers. They're going to Tampa to play Baker and the Bucs. The Niners have an implied team total of 22.5 points, and the Bucs have an implied team total of 25.5 points. For the Niners, it looks like Brock Purdy's not going to go. It looks like Ricky's not going to go. Jawan Jennings looks like he's probably not going to go. So a lot of the cast is going to be the same as it was last Thursday against the Rams, but they have extended rest. So we're going to start Mac Jones. Let's go, baby. Michael McCorkle Jones is a start for us. And the 49ers lead the NFL in passing yards. I'm kind of shocked if you told me that Mac Jones is going to be playing for over half of the game so far, and that's where they stand. We're going to start CMC. We're gonna spot start our guy, Los Gatos legend, Jake Tonjes. 11 targets last week. We like his chances here. And then Kendrick Bourne. Thank God we signed him off the street. What a difference maker. What a difference maker Kendrick Bourne turned out to be. I'm excited to see what the output is this week. Then for the Bucs, we're going to start Baker, no brainer at this point, man. I think Baker's in the MVP conversation. Like to me, like I think Baker should be a front runner for the MVP. He's been playing so well. This is one of my favorite stories in the NFL, the just career resurrection. I love my Niners, but I think Baker has a good one here. Same with Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver 3 on the season. He only has less fantasy points than Puka and Amon-Ra. Exactly. I feel like he's finally grabbed this wide receiver 1 of the Buccaneers by the balls here, and he's just going to take off with it. Smash start here. Smash start here. Wide receiver 1. Then for Rachaad White, he is, it's not always sexy. When he was like a starting running back, like for a whole season, it was terrible. Nobody liked him. Everyone's like, this guy sucks and is inefficient. But filling in for Bucky, he's done pretty good, man. We're going to start him here. Even though the Niners, they've started to bow up a little bit on defense, it hasn't been awesome. It's not like the Niners defensive unit from 2 years ago, but they're still pretty good. That being said, they're Rachaad White. He's just getting bell cow usage. He's getting passes out of the backfield. We're just going to do it. For our sits, Chris Godwin. I mean, he he's getting targets, but he just has looked gimpy and ineffective to me. I just don't love the matchup. Yanni, is he gonna be out wide, do you think, or in the slot? You have any idea?
No, they've been using him in the slot. more since he came back. But Shepard. So they have Shepard, who plays exclusively out of the slot.
Okay.
So I would imagine he's going to play out wide a pretty good amount. Stout got burned last week, but that was against Puka and like Devontae. Stout has actually been pretty good as an eraser in the slot. So like I think it may force some passes outside to Godwin. It's more just like the Niners pass defense unit has been pretty stingy, dude. They have not let wide receivers get off against them too badly. I know JSN did, but JSN does that to a lot of people. Like for the most part, they've been putting the clamps on wide receivers. It's been JSN and Puka have gotten loose, and then Devontae had a bunch when they were trailing and had to air it out in the fourth quarter. But until the fourth quarter, Devontae was almost getting blanked against them too. It's just a tough matchup. They play good pass D for the most part.
Yeah. Still have Godwin stashed on your bench. Hopefully, I'm just kind of waiting for Chris Godwin to start looking more healthy. Does it happen this year? I'm not sure, but until that happens, no thank you. And then Cade Otton, he kind of popped up in the box score last week. It was more, to me, it's more a function of like that game script. That was a crazy game script. Like every single drive was like heavy Baker Mayfield passing, touchdowns everywhere. I think he got like 5 points. It's just, uh, you could start him if you're desperate, but I wouldn't be counting on a good one this week. Going up against, because like they're going to get matched up on linebackers, right? Fred Warner, I believe he is graded 90.1 against the pass, and I think he's like 92 against the run. Like he's the only guy like with an over 90 grade in both the pass and the run. It just feels like a difficult matchup for him. So that's what I got for this one. What do you think, Yanni? What's your prediction on Niners Hub going to be? You're picking the Niners to win, right?
No, I don't think I am going to. But I didn't pick him to win. I picked him to get blown out against the Rams. So maybe I have a bad read on the Niners, dude. I think like how many games do you think they can keep rolling out their practice squad offense and rocking them, But like this is a way easier matchup than the Rams were. This is a way easier defensive matchup than the Rams. What Tampa Bay doesn't want you, what Tampa Bay wants you to do is to try to run the ball against them, not pass the ball. They're very susceptible to the pass, right? Well, the Niners can't run the ball this year. They're averaging under 3 yards a carry. They want to pass the ball too. That's what they've been doing. So if it were like Ricky and Juwan Jennings are in there, then I think this is a pretty good, I would take the Niners to win by a field goal. They're rolling they've been winning. They're 4-1 with a practice squad offense going out there. Jake Tonjes has had over 13 fantasy points per game for 2 weeks now. And I think Jake Tonjes is like a pretty good receiver, pretty good receiving tight end. Dude, that's a really tall task. Like the Buccaneers might be playing some of the best football in the league. They had Tristan Wirfs back recently. Like, I don't know. That's really hard. Emeka Egbuka is playing like as good as any receiver in the sport. It's just hard. It's a tall task. That is a tall task. So if I had to guess, I think it's going to be 31-24 Buccaneers.
I gotta be honest, I am not gonna pick the Niners to win this one either. But the team as a whole is so far ahead of schedule from what they should be that even if they lost this one, I can't even be upset.
It's a really hard matchup, dude. There are a lot of teams that are going to go in there and lose to the Buccaneers this year. It's just the way it is. They're a damn good football team. They really are. Okay, speaking of damn good football team and one that's not so good, Joe Flacco, newly traded to the Bengals with his newly minted jerseys that's going around Twitter. It's kind of funny. First quarterback in human history, not just the NFL, and all of humanity to start for 3 teams in the AFC North. The Bengals with an implied team total of 15. Going to the formerly vaunted Packers defense. Maybe they're still good. Who knows? We'll find out. Packers defense at 29.5 points implied. Highest implied total of the week. For the Bengals, I think my stance has been pretty consistent with Jamar Chase. I think he takes a pretty sizable step back, an appreciable step back with Burrow out. I don't think he's below a wide receiver 1 in any given game or rest of season. And I think Flacco is probably an improvement over what they've been getting out of Browning. So, like, if you don't agree with all that, and if you're not starting Chase weekly, you need to trade him. So he's just a start every week, right? He's too good of a player. He has 30 point per game upside, which is something very few receivers in the whole sport have. Very few receivers in the history of football have 30 point fantasy upside per week, right? So, like, he's a start, and I don't see that changing. I don't know why that would change. I wouldn't pull him out of your lineup. Chase Brown, Joe Flacco has one of the highest rates of checkdowns in the league. Chase Brown is still getting like major workhorse usage in terms of percentage of the workload. I saw, I think it was P. Ryan that was working in last week. I don't think it was the guy they drafted, the other guy they drafted. I saw him losing a little bit of work last week, but I don't know, that could have just been because the game was such a mess. And you know, I think you're starting both of these guys this week with confidence. And I say that as someone who absolutely aggressively dumped his Chase Brown shares over the last 3 weeks. You're sitting Joe Flacco. I think there will be matchups where this is attackable. With how bad the defense is, dude, like Joe Flacco might be live to air it out 48 times. This was the same offensive scheme he was in when he was balling out with Cleveland a couple years ago. I mean, I guess it was the same scheme in Cleveland to this point. But like he does really well in this Shanna scheme, right? That relies on making the right reads and reading the defense correctly. He's a veteran. Like there's going to be weeks where he's going to be startable. It's just not this week. And then your sort of tricky decision is going to be T. Higgins. I think if you need an emergency flex, I actually don't hate it at all. Like I was trying to think back on it. Like, this has to be the best receiving core that Flacco's ever thrown to, right? In his career?
By far. By far. It's not close.
No, he had Anquan Bolden and who was their wide receiver too there the year that he beat the Niners in the Super Bowl? Was it Anquan Bolden and Torrey Smith?
Yeah.
Torrey Smith and then Jones, the guy who died. The kick returner.
Yeah, I don't remember his name.
Number 12, the kick returner. But like, so this has to be the best receiving core he's ever thrown to in his life. Like, I don't know. I'm curious. I also, though, am not as bold. The fantasy community, there are some corners of it. I think just people that have gotten hammered as Jamar Chase owners that are like, oh my God, we're all the way back. I don't know if we're all the way back, boys. I think it's an improvement over Browning. I'm excited to see where it goes. Joe Flacco has also been one of the 5 worst quarterbacks in the league when pressured for the last 2 or 3 years. Like if he's not getting that ball out of his hands lickety split, I don't have faith in his ability to operate under pressure. And this is the Bengals defensive line going against the Packers, Bengals offensive line going against the Packers defensive line. It's a really tall task. This is a really tall task. But I'm excited to see it. I really am. For the Packers, Love, Jacobs, Kraft, no further explanation needed on those 3. They are startable rest of season. I think Love maybe you're going to be a little judicious about what matchups you attack. Like I went through on my Lamar Jackson rosters, Love was dropped in a lot of leagues on his bye. I don't think he's the kind of quarterback you drop on his bye. I think he's like better than that. I was kind of surprised. But I was able to go through on like a few Lamar Jackson rosters and stash Love for this week. Great. Gets the Bengals. I feel fantastic about that. Kraft was an inch away from 2 touchdowns a couple weeks ago, coming off his bye. I feel amazing about Kraft as like a mid-range tight end 1 rest of season. Jacobs had a 30-point game last week, his first explosion of the year. It is smooth sailing for the strength of schedule moving forward. Jacobs is a locked and loaded low-end to mid-range running back 1 rest of season. And then the interesting one, Kraft led the team in Golden led the team in receiving yards last week. Was like, dude, he keeps getting, he might be the new George Pickens where he's like an inch or 2 away from incredible plays. He keeps getting sailed on these like should be touchdowns. He could have like a 95-yard touchdown last week, 2 weeks ago. He's getting open a lot. And I know Christian Watson's coming back and I know Reed's coming back. And at that point, it's going to be this gross cluster F of weird who's going to get the play time. I think in the meantime, Golden is going to be an upside flex kind of guy. And I have a roster this week that is missing Rashee Rice, Justin Jefferson, Nico Collins, and George Kittle. I am relying on Golden to go out there as my wide receiver 2 and carry me to a must win. That roster is 1-4. I'm number 1 in points against in the league. I'm relying on Golden to carry me. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. And then Dobbs had a high-end wide receiver 1 week too. I think he had about 26 points on 2 touchdowns. One of my most rostered receivers in Underdog, and that's been awesome. I think he will go away. The production will go away when Watson and Reed are back. But until they're back, if you need someone off the waiver that you can plug and play, Dobbs is like the ultimate. Grab a guy off the waiver, plug him in. You might get lucky and get a league-winning week off of the wire from him. And there are very few guys that can do that. And he's a start this week. He is a start against the Bengals comfortably for me.
Yeah, man. It feels like in the passing game, Jordan Love has been looking Dobbs' way an awful lot in the end zone, right?
Yeah.
Like those end zone passes, Dobbs has been eating there. So I like the shout. On the team that was starting Malik Washington and Amari DiMercado last week in the double flex, I was able to level up and get Romeo Dobbs on waivers. So I will be rolling him out. I'm needing that. I wonder in this game, right? Like I think that it's entirely reliant on how much resistance the Cincinnati Bengals can offer the Packers, right? Like, is the offense for the Bengals going to be able to put any pressure on the Packers whatsoever? I think if this thing is like a laugher, if it's like over by halftime, like you could see the Packers just come and run the ball down the Bengals' throat, right? Like, I don't think that the Packers are going to feel the need to pass very much if they don't need to. So I wonder about the volume in the passing game, but the theory of the matchup is so good that I feel like we're not going to tell you to sit them. And then for the Bengals end, I mean, I have T. Higgins bags, I have Jamar Chase bags. I think that, you know, the Browns would not trade Flacco within division if they thought he was like like still a very good player, right? This is still like a bottom end starting NFL quarterback at this stage of his career. But what I do think he's going to be able to do that Jake Browning was not able to do was not shit his pants like and throw
Yeah.
have like three pick games. I think it raises the floor of all of the Bengals guys. Does that mean anything? Does that mean that I feel like Jamar Chase, like you said, right? Like all of his big games are on the back of him just being a physical freak, winning his matchups one on one, making it undeniable. I think Flacco should still be able to push the ball down the field
Oh yeah.
in different types of matchups. This one feels to me like get the ball out of his hands quick, so Micah Parsons doesn't kill him, right? So yeah, that's really it. I do have one league that's probably going to rely on T. Higgins in the flex. I don't feel great about it, but you know, if Flacco can raise the floor, T. Higgins is a good player. He didn't just magically become a bad player. It's just the situation is so awful. All right, Sunday night matchup. I think this one is actually going to deliver in terms of watchability. A lot of the Kansas City Chiefs standalone primetime games, like over the past really 3 years. Like they've kind of been boring to watch. People call the Chiefs a boring team. I think this is going to be an excellent Sunday night game. I'm really happy the schedule makers put this in the primetime slot. We got the Detroit Lions going to Arrowhead to take on the 2-3 Kansas City Chiefs. The Lions have an implied team total of 25 points, and the Chiefs have an implied team total of 27.5 points, which seems I'm shocked the Chiefs are favored here, but I guess maybe home field advantage. I don't know. For the Lions, we're going to start Gibbs, we're going to start Amon-Ra, and we're going to start Sam Laporta. Then we're going to tricky decision Jared Goff, David Montgomery, and JMO. Then for the Chiefs, we're going to start Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelsey, Xavier Worthy, and Tyquan Thornton. Then we're going to tricky decision the whatever they're doing in the backfield with Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, and Brashard Smith is a cute little DFS dart throw. Let's start with Detroit first. We've kind of been saying this. We've kind of been beating this drum all year with the Detroit Lions. They just because they have so many fantasy relevant options that are on their team. Um, Unless they're playing a dog shit team with an uncompetitive defense, I feel like you're gonna have to pick and choose which one have the production in any given week, right? So in a matchup like this, where the Chiefs have been pretty good against the running back, we're going to start Gibbs instead of Monty. It feels like Monty is more of like a goal line hammer. You have a soft defensive line, we're going to run it right up your gut. The Chiefs do not have that, so we prefer Gibbs's like shiftiness, like passing work out of the backfield. You're never sitting Gibbs anyways, right? But it's just like what games can you start both of them? We don't think this is one of them. Amon-Ra, it's a no-brainer. He's the wide receiver too in scoring on the year. The Chiefs have been taken advantage of in the air. Brian Thomas had his best game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Justin Herbert threw all over him. QJ kind of tore him up. So the Chiefs are they have Trent McDuffie, but I still like Amon-Ra in that matchup. Then Sam Laporta, he had a great week last week. How much of that was that it was his turn to eat and it was the Bengals? I don't know for sure, but the tight end position is just a tough one. We're not going to tell you to sit Laporta. That just feels like, even though he's been slightly disappointing on the year, he's not. You're not sitting him. Like, if you had like Tucker Kraft and Sam Laporta on the same roster for some reason, then sure, start Tucker Kraft instead, right? Like, to me, like Sam Laporta is probably like the tight end 6 or 7 on the week. That's still startable. Then Jared Goff, tricky decision. The theory of the matchup is good, but it's going to be outside in Kansas City in Arrowhead under the big lights where Goff has historically struggled. I feel like this thing could get sideways, but also the theory of the matchup, and what I think this is going to be a high scoring, like back and forth one that Goff could do pretty good in. We already talked about Monty, and then JMO, probably one of the most disappointing players on this season, like for fantasy managers. I know Yanni said he's out of the Jameson Williams business, but that's just kind of the deal with this type of like deep threat receiver, right? I think that we kind of got sold a bill of goods on Jameson Williams this offseason, that he was going to be more involved in the offense. I think
Yep.
Dan Campbell said he's the best he's ever looked. The fact of the matter is he's just kind of like a deep threat for this team. The Chiefs have gotten torched on deep stuff, so it's possible, but just like with the variance of the player and the production so far, I can't put him above a tricky decision. And still, until he starts putting more consistent, box scores and production on the field. What do you think, man? Who do you got in this one, Chiefs or Lions?
If the line stays at under 3, I will bet the Chiefs. If you're going to give me a field goal, I think that's pretty good value. I saw a crazy, like a wild statistic. Jameson Williams has barely outproduced Christian Watson in his career. They're like very comparable in terms of on the field production in their careers so far, which is just wild. And I don't know, as the proud new owner of a Pacheco share, as someone who made a move to acquire a Pacheco share, I'm looking forward to their running backs. I think he's going to be the starter by the end of the year. But I
Stop
don't.
it.
I
They're
really
much more likely to trade for. There's no way. There is no way.
yeah. Yeah, I know. I know there's speculation that these aggregation accounts I don't take seriously. There's speculation that they've been making calls on Breece Hall and Alvin Kamara. Maybe makes sense. Both make sense. Yeah, dude, I don't think, I'm looking over, seeing, do I have any comments to make? I don't really think so. I think Worthy and Thornton will both be fun this week. I think they're good starts. That's it.
I will say, I'm in 5 leagues this year. I ratcheted up to 5 leagues this year. I feel like not every team is doing like super well, but I feel like, a lot of the calls that I made this offseason were pretty good. I feel like a lot of my teams have upside. They're competing. One
Right.
of I believe this was my worst fantasy call of the offseason. I loved Isaiah Pacheco this year. I was like, dude, like, listen, he's gonna be the RB1 for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't think he's that
Yep.
talented, but like the opportunity is so great. I have never been more disgusted with an offseason take than that one. It's done. Like Kareem Hunt broke off a 30-yard run last week. Pacheco has had no more than 10 opportunities in any game. And until the Chiefs like decide they want to use him, which I don't, why would they? Why would they, right? Like the whole thing, like I feel like Trevion Henderson's having like the same problem right now. Like you might be
Yeah.
marginally better than the guys around you, but Kareem Hunt, he has a lot of like leeway within the organization, right? He's built up a lot of equity with Mahomes and Reed.
Yeah.
Like he was so good for so long there. Like unless you're undeniable, man, I feel like you're just stuck in this weird blob, I guess, to use your term. But best of luck with that. Pacheco was a little throw-in, so
Yeah. To be
join
fair,
me.
that's not even like a blob at running back. You're talking about when you start getting into the running back 35 to 50, you're talking about like the guys you plug in your lineup and go, well, something's going to happen. Yeah.
I
By
had
the
to
way, I don't
start
know.
his ass last week. It was so
I
bad.
don't know if it's relevant, but I'll just throw it out there because I've been watching the chaos online. Forge and Fire just dropped 2,000 boxes of Mega Evolutions at 240. No limit, no purchase limit. 2,000 boxes at $240.
Are people upset by that? Like,
No, I've just been watching the pandemonium of people ordering 2,000 boxes with no limit. It was kind of crazy. I thought about going in, I don't know, 240 on a new set. It's a little weird. I just thought it would be, I just thought I'd tell you. It was distracting. I have their notifications on, so my things have been binging me that whole time. Anyway, I just thought I'd throw it out there. All right. Okay, for the Bills and the Falcons, man, I was so excited, and I still am so excited about this Falcons team this year. But their offense has been just a little disappointing to me. I would actually say London's been like pretty disappointing to me, but Bijan, I think I was maybe open for a bit more. He is also one of those players that's most correlated with a 4-1 or 5-0 start. So he's actually been a force multiplier for your fantasy rosters this year. So it's not like anything like that. I don't know. I always feel like there's some meat on the bone left with his games. Part of that is just because Algiers like looked too good to take him out. But anyway, so you have the Bills going to the Falcons. Bills with an implied team total of 27. Falcons with an implied team total of 22.5. I noticed the Bills are getting a little less respect on the spread this week. They've been getting some pretty monster spreads that they haven't been covering. And a big part of that is they've been really gettable on the ground, which should factor in pretty heavily here. For the Bills, I think this is pretty straightforward. The Falcons are actually first place in the NFL in the fewest yards allowed to running back this year. The Falcons are a stuffer in terms of running back fantasy production, and we just saw Cook have trouble with the 31st team in the New England Patriots. I don't know though, dude. I view Cook as like a borderline top 5 running back, and I don't really care about what the matchup is. Sure, it bit us in the butt last week, but there's no real discussion to be had there. You're starting him every week. Maybe you get a buy low opportunity. If he has another single digit game, I would encourage you to aggressively send out offers for Cook, but you are going to roll him here. And then Allen, no comment needed, right? Kincaid is Kincaid, like a tight end 2 or 3 this year? He's top 5.
He
right?
is the tight end 6 on the year in scoring.
Tight end 6. Okay, so yeah. I don't know. I think you're starting him every week. I had a roster where I threw him on a Josh Allen stack in round 14 of a draft. I was like, yeah, sure. I'll see if that goes somewhere. I've been happy with it. Unfortunately, that roster is a Jamar Chase and Chase Brown roster, and a Trevion Henderson, actually, all there at once. But look, Kincaid's lovely. You feel great starting him. Like I would roll him out there until proven otherwise. And same with Shakir. Shakir is one of those players that because he's not special in any way, he'll never get the credit he deserves. AJ Terrell, I'm not sure if with the bye week he's going to be back or not, but if he is, he's an outside corner, so he's going to handle the Keon Coleman matchup. Shakir should eat, man. This should be a wonderful spot to get him in there, especially if the Bills have to chase points in this one. Absolutely love the start this week for him. Keon Coleman's a sort of tricky decision, much closer to a sit for me. I was watching a bunch of like fantasy Q&As this week where people were saying, should I drop Keon Coleman? Absolutely not. He's a great wide receiver 5 because he's attached to Josh Allen, because there's enough games where you could see yourself slotting him in there. Keep him as a wide receiver 5, but he's nothing more to me than an emergency start in a beneficial matchup. Like I had to start him last week on a roster that was just so bad. It was missing so many guys, and it's not really a rewarding feeling. His big week 1 was a little bit fluky. His separation scores are still terrible. His route win rates are still terrible this year. I think it's pretty clear that Shakir is the number 1 receiver there for like moving the sticks and getting yardage. I think Kincaid is the preferred target in the red zone. And I think Cook is one of their most effective weapons catching the ball out of the backfield. Coleman to me is pretty firmly in that 4th weapon range there. And that's not even counting Josh Allen's running. So plan accordingly moving forward. For the Falcons, London, finally, this is like one of those weird, you guys are football fans, you guys are fantasy fans, you get in this thing where you get like a man crush on a player, and that's just this weird player that you're enamored with, and you root for them in weird circumstances. For me, it's just always been Drake London. I don't know why. I loved his college tape. I loved when he came in the league. I went and drafted him aggressively at the 2-3 turn last year. This year, he is by a mile my most rostered wide receiver on Underdog. And a big part of that was I thought he would maybe get a 35% target share. I thought he had a chance for 170, 180 targets this year. And I was hoping he got at least 40% of his routes out of the slot. That is so important. It's for so many reasons, right? And so in week 1, we saw 15 targets, but he dropped a touchdown, ended up having a pedestrian wide receiver 3 week. He then had 2 more wide receiver 3-4 borderline weeks. And then finally in week 4, he gets his 44% or 46% slot snap rate, and he goes for over 20. He gets the touchdown. He has the deep bombs. His A-dot explodes. It's everything you were hoping to see out of him. How much of that is their offense trying to figure out what's right or not? How much of it is Penix developing? How much of it is their really banged up O-line that can't give Penix the time to hit those routes anymore? Maybe it was a beneficial matchup. I just don't know. I really don't know. I've been trying to buy on London where I can. I'm saying all this to say this to me is actually a really big game. This is an excellent secondary that's done pretty well, but they've also been gouged. Like Zay Flowers had a day against him, right?
In the
And
slot is where they've been gouged too. Diggs just had
in
his
the
big week
slot,
all in the slot. Yeah.
Diggs just went off out of the slot. Like, look, if overweight sits on his couch watching Fantasy Guy notices this about Drake London, I have to think that multimillionaire from coaching offensive football Zach Robinson has noticed it as well, right? Like, there's no way that I'm sitting here picking these things out and they're going over his head. So, like, I think we're going to see a massive London week here. But, like, if we don't, there's going to have to be a serious conversation had about what the nature of Drake London is moving forward, what Michael Penix's situation is moving forward. Was this a busted pick at the 1-2 turn? I still totally, I believe in the player. I believe in the role. And I loved Penix. I had Penix as like the QB 2 or 3 in his class. I thought he was right there. I think these are just the growing pains that go along with a young quarterback. But to me, there's a lot riding on this Drake London game, like a lot. I will drop almost all of my priors, or at least reevaluate them in a pretty significant way, depending on what happens here. So I'm going to be nervously watching this one. Is this another Monday night doubleheader, by the way?
Yep.
God, that's so horrible. I hate that. I know you like that. I hate that. Okay. Bijan, smash play. Nothing else to say there, dude. This team gets gouged on the ground. Bijan might go for 180, 200 yards. Just an absolute hammer. We're going to sit Michael Penix. And, we didn't put him on here, but Algier has actually been coming in that cleanup power role. Like, there's a chance that he gets in the end zone in this one. If you need like an emergency fill-in guy, again, like I have a roster where I'm flexing Zach Ertz because I'm missing 3 or 4 guys that would have been in my flex. I would put Algier in a situation like that. He's been getting enough work. I like him enough to have him in there. But you're going to sit Penix. And then, Algier, sort of tricky decision. And Mooney and Pitts. Mooney was injured again this week. I don't know if he's going or not.
He's going. They said that he's likely to go. Yeah.
He was questionable today on the injury report. Okay. So I think just with the game script in general, like they're both on the radar. I think Pitts is a fine start. I don't know if I would be attacking it though. Like if I had better options, I would look for better options. To me, Mooney's just kind of a cool stash where in emergencies, he's going to get a little bit of volume, but that's about all it is for me.
I mean, I'll kind of give my take on this Drake London thing. I feel like the player that he has been consistent since his rookie year. I think he's a very, very good wide receiver. It's all just a function of who his quarterback is. And Drake London has not gone in double digits this year with Michael Penix. His big game was with Marcus Mariota. I feel like this is more, if you don't get a good game out of London, I don't think it's a condemnation of Drake London. I think it's a condemnation of Michael Penix. Fact of the matter is he's only played this is only to me like his 7th game ever. He's like effectively in his rookie year.
You mean Kirk Cousins, by the way, right?
What?
You mean Kirk Cousins? When Kirk Cousins stepped in, he had that big segment.
Oh, you're right, because it was.
Oh my God. No, it's okay because Mariota was there too. I was like, dude, I missed a lot.
No, hold on. I totally messed that up. So his 20-point game was against Washington, who was starting Marcus Mariota.
Okay.
That's what it was.
Okay, dude, you're gonna have to cut all that out. Just go ahead. Sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'll stop.
No, I'm leaving it in. Okay. I make mistakes too. Yeah, but is that a function of? I guess to your point, right? Is that a function of the Commanders? I guess secondary being trash. Like the Commanders have gotten just torched. Like Geno Smith had like 280 yards and 3 touchdowns. That was the big Trey Tucker game against the Commanders. Like the Chargers weren't able to do it last week. I don't. We'll see. I feel like whatever the result is for Drake London here, I wouldn't give up on him because Penix could always get better because he's still effectively like a rookie, right? That's the whole point. For me, this game plan is very simple though. If you're the Falcons, like just run the ball. Just run the ball as much as you can. I want a first, second, third down. Run. Like the Bills cannot stop it, and that's your best player. Like it's going to be very important for them to try and keep pace with the Bills offense here because I think the Bills are going to score a lot. And the only other note I have on Buffalo is just I feel like this might be Kincaid might be turning the corner here. Like he went over 100 receiving yards last week, right? Like this Josh Allen Bills offense has kind of been looking for someone to step up as like a like an actual like go-to target, right? Shakir does like that yak stuff. Keon Coleman like hit or miss player. I think like just as a player himself. I think that Kincaid, he might be stapled to, if this keeps going well, he might be stapled to your tight end position. I actually dropped him after week 1 for Juwan Johnson in one league.
Oh,
Feeling bad about that right now. That was a
oh,
Josh Allen roster too.
you should have bounced that off me.
Well, it was like Juwan was getting the usage, right? And that was the week, like, I think Kincaid had like 3 targets he got in the paint. And I was like, cool, okay. I'm going to get rid of that. I'm just going to get it off my roster now, get in the volume guy. But now Juwan isn't getting the volume anymore. And it's like, oh, no, like maybe that's okay. It's all
So
right.
wait,
Live and learn.
just real quick before this game, I have to preface this by saying I have a roster that was Jahmyr Gibbs, Omarion Hampton, and then at the 9th, 10th round turn, I took Bill Jacoski Merritt. So obviously, Omarion Hampton has gone down. I will be rolling out Bill for what I think is his coming out game, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be in on the Bill Fest. But go
Dude,
ahead.
this offseason you were the Eckler guy. You were the
I
you were the Eckler guy. I had to like Bill was one of the only rookie running backs I bought into all offseason. My whole theory of like rookie ADPs was, why am I paying the premium for him when there's guys you can get for cheap, right? And Bill was
yeah,
that for a while. Near the end, he wasn't. But anyways, this is the rematch of the Fail Mary last year, where Tyreek Stevenson like was talking shit to Redskins fans, and then they gave up the Hail Mary. I mean, the Bears got rid of their entire coaching staff. Caleb has looked marginally better. We'll see how this looks. The Bears are going to be underdogs in this one. 22 and a half implied team total to the Redskins 27. For the Bears, we're going to start Caleb in this one. Okay. We're going to start Rome Odunze, and we're going to start DeAndre Swift. I actually have a DeAndre Swift share. He's, you know, we talked about bell cow usage. He's getting it. He's like Tony Pollard tier to me, though.
yeah.
We're going to sit the Bears tight ends and Luther Burden, and we're going to tricky decision DJ Moore. For the Redskins, we're going to start Jaden Noda. We're going to start Debo, who I think he's projected for like 13 points this week on Yahoo. I wish Debo was still on the Niners, man, but I like seeing him do well in a good environment. And like Yanni said, we're starting Bill this week. The backfield takeover may be here. Then we're going to tricky decision Zach Ertz. So let's start with the Bears first. I'm going to attempt to tackle this. I'm going to try my best to tackle this. Caleb Williams has been over 20 fantasy points, I think 3 times this year. I think he was the fantasy quarterback like 1 until he had the stinker against the Raiders. Like we've talked about, though, like I just mentioned during the last slide, like this Redskins secondary is bad. They're a bad secondary. They can get torched. What we saw the Redskins do last week against the Chargers is just beat the shit out of Justin Herbert with the bad O line, right? The Bears don't have a great O line. I worry that Caleb's going to get flustered here, like he did against Max Crosby and the Raiders. Like we've seen bad Caleb a lot, but the production has been good enough. I think is a cautious start for me this week. Roma Dunze, I believe he's like the fantasy wide receiver 5 or 6 on the year. That's including the bye week. He's gotten 4 touchdowns on. No, he has 5 touchdowns. My bad. He already has 5 touchdowns. He's exceeded his touchdown total all of his rookie year already. I'm starting to buy into this idea that he is like the alpha wide receiver there. I typically slow roll my takes. I don't like to get overreactive to things, but high draft capital guy, talented guy. Caleb seems to be looking his way. And if you're getting that level of touchdown equity, right, I think there's a reason for that. I feel like he's a fine start here. To me, he's like wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 borderline. I know some people would say he's a locked in top 5 option. He's not that for me, but I'm comfortably starting him. And then Swift, it's just the usage, man. Like he just gets most of the work here. Keep your eye on this if you're a DeAndre Swift manager. The Bears are coming off their bye. There is the term the fantasy community loves to use, the post-bye rookie bump. Kyle Monangai has been like over the past 2 weeks before the bye, he's like become the just stapled in like backup running back to DeAndre Swift, right? He was getting a little bit more work. Just watch it. Just watch it. If this thing becomes a split, it could get bad. But until we see that, we're not gonna project Swift to not be like getting all of the work. For the sits, the tight ends, same idea here, right? Colston Loveland post by rookie bump. What does that look like? I don't know. I know Cole Kmet has been significantly more relevant thus far as a fantasy tight end, but does Colston Loveland finally kind of take over that position? Is it still a weird split? I'm not trying to chase the tight end points from Chicago yet. I would be picking up Colston Loveland though if he's on waivers. Same with Luther Burden, another post buy rookie bump candidate. He's kind of like he's either Marvin Mims or Jamison Williams. I'm not sure which one he is, but he's been a deep threat, right? Like Ben Johnson has drawn up like a bunch of like gadget plays for him where he's like going deep. He has like really elite speed. He was a second round pick by Ben Johnson, so like in theory that they want to get him more involved in the offense. I just would like to see it before we start suggesting tricky decision or start. But again, another one of those guys like Colston Loveland, you if he's on waivers, go scoop him up right now. And then DJ Moore, the production just has not been there. I think he's a significantly better player than what his fantasy production has been, but it's been consistently bad enough now where it's like, do you really want to? You could. I like the talent. I think he might be a trade candidate, especially if Ben Johnson wants to get Luther Burden more involved. For the Redskins, I feel like there's no explanation needed on Jaden. He's just the magic man. One of my favorite rookies I've ever seen play football, I guess. Debo, he's getting. I think he had like 11 targets last week. Like without Terry McLaurin like being in this offense, Debo has done a pretty decent job at being the go-to guy for Jaden. I've seen him as a sell high candidate. I think that's a good shout for sell high if you think that Debo is injury prone or he's old. But I would just keep riding it. Take your win. Take your win if you have been getting it so far. I think he's like a flex to wide receiver 2 this week. Then Bill, that matchups do not get better than the Chicago Bears. Bill has been the most efficient rusher on the ground this year in EPA. It feels like the Dan Quinn and the Redskins have finally decided, hey, well, let's stop with this committee nonsense. Let's get Bill to work. I like Bill as like a mid-range to high-end RB2 this week. I'm actually going against the Bill roster in an extremely important matchup, and I'm not stoked about it. Then Zach Ertz, tricky decision. He got the goose last week, which was not ideal, but it was like a weird game script from the Redskins. Jaden Daniels, his first week back off of like being injured with the knee brace on. They had a surprisingly rushing heavy game script. I feel like this game has the potential to be one of those ones that is like a high scoring, back and forth, exciting game. If that is the case, Zach Ertz has been consistent enough. He's been a scheme fit for Cliff Kingsbury. I like his chances, especially in a position where it's hard to find points. I think he's a good shout for a tricky decision. If he's on waivers, again, go get him. Like, I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers got pissed at the goose last week. Like, Yanni, didn't you stream Zach Ertz last week?
I streamed him last week in 2 leagues. It cost me. It cost me my undefeated record in our one league in League 7 because I lost by 2.4 points. 2.4.
Well, I mean,
I
if
just
Jamar Chase didn't put up 5 points, you would have lost to me too.
no, not against you. And I well, yeah, against not when I lost, but I lost my undefeated mark on a roster that I think is pretty damn pristine on a Omarion Hampton third quarter or fourth quarter injury. And yeah, the 0 from Zach Ertz. I do, though. That was Zach Ertz's only game without a reception since like 2018 or 2019. It's been like a crazy streak since he's had no receptions. And he put up 30 points with Jaden Daniels the first 2 weeks of the year. So to me, that's not like a banished to the shadow realm player. Like I'm keeping him on my one roster that I'm just cycling through tight ends, trying to find one. I am still holding on to him. I plan to flex Terry this week, but because it looks like Terry isn't going, I will probably have Zach Ertz in the flex this week. So
Let's go.
yeah, man, looking forward to it.
All right. That's going to do it for us. If you made it through the whole video, thank you. Please like, subscribe, hit the bell. Helps the channel out. Question of the day for the audience. And I feel like because we finished on the Bears, I want to ask this. Do you think that Caleb Williams is a bust? I feel like he's a very divisive player. Last season, I couldn't figure out what to make of him. When he came in the league, I thought he was a bust. Then I saw stuff that I liked with him. I thought maybe he wasn't. This year, I thought that maybe he was again. But now his production's been good. I don't know what to make of the player. I wonder if you guys, the free Tendies fantasy community out there, has more definitive opinions than me. What do you think, Yanni? Is Caleb a bust?
No, man, I think we're seeing real growth out of him. I really do. it's just hard because I don't know. Do you grade him on a curve for like the do you, I mean, was his rookie season really one where he was going to develop? He said he couldn't even get coaches to sit down and like work on film with him. So like, do you view this as his developmental rookie arc or not? I don't really, I mean, he did play a full NFL season, right? So it's hard for me to say like, well, we should grade him like he's a rookie developing. But to me, I think I've seen market improvement week to week. I mean, do you not feel like that's been the case, that he's sort of been incrementally growing, even in easy matchups? Sure. But like, I don't know. He's throwing a lot of touchdowns. His mobility looks elite to me. Like just moving the pocket, like getting out on the run, and then his throws from weird angles are incredible. His arm strength, that bomb to Luther Burden on the flea flicker was pretty crazy. Like I think we're seeing some of it.
Well, he's
Some,
always had the tools, in my opinion, right? Like even last year, that was by all accounts a disaster for what was supposed to be like one of the
right?
best quarterback prospects ever. Like he always had these flashes, and it's like okay, like we saw, like to me, I watched a lot of that Raiders game, and he looked
Yeah.
terrible to me against the Raiders, right? Like he's
Yes.
an athletic guy, he can move around, but some of the shit he does on a regular basis, I'm just ugh, ugh, that's gross. And like, especially in this game, right? Like against the Redskins, where you have Jaden Daniels, who the Bears like decidedly like they knew Caleb was the guy like a month before the draft. They didn't even
Yeah.
interview anyone else, right? And now you see like Jaden Daniels, who's having
Right.
like one of the most elite starts to a career I've ever seen. It's like,
Right.
is he a bust based on him not being Jaden level, or is he
Mm.
just not ready? I don't know. It's hard.
Dude, like we have to keep things in 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 7 interceptions with a complete mess around you, like with a horrific coaching staff, specifically a horrific offensive coaching staff, and like a pretty bad, his all line was bottom five. He took top five of the most hits ever for a rookie quarterback. Like I actually think that's a real showing, like a pretty impressive showing. Odunze didn't contribute much last year, you know. Um, yeah, I don't know. And I'm also like, I think we're going to see another level to this offense, dude. Who knows what we get out of Colston Loveland and Luther Burden. Dude, there were people that thought Luther Burden was going to be like a huge deal in the NFL. He just had some weirdness toward the end of his college career. Um, yeah, I don't know. I'm really curious to see, because also like Loveland, dude, how are they not running the offense to a degree through Loveland at this point? Like, I wonder if that's what it's going to look like coming out of the bye, if they really are, if we're going to see what, I don't know why we're not seeing like rookie year Sam Laporta usage from Loveland, right? And that was something that Ben Johnson did, and toward the latter half of the season for Laporta. So I'm gonna say he's certainly not a bust. I don't think whether Jaden does well or not, that's a different question to me. That's like, was there a better pick to make? But I don't think that makes him a bust or not. To me, a bust would be like if he's off the team in the next year or two. And to me, it looks more like him and Ben Johnson are working on what their long-term relationship's going to look like. And I do believe he's going to be Ben Johnson's quarterback in the future. I think that's my thing.
Oh, you're more positive than me. My best answer is I don't know, but you're on the yes team. All right, that's gonna do it for us. We will see you on Friday for the gambling show.